What I'm going to disclose next will completely upend your understanding of 3I Atlas and the true events unfolding in our solar system at this moment. As society argues over if it's merely a comet or an entirely different entity, confidential files and secret sightings paint a starkly contrasting picture, one that authorities are desperate to keep from public view. A coronal mass ejection struck 3I Atlas only days back. What followed utterly contradicts all the physical principles we hold as true. Rather than disintegrating or veering off, the entity took in the force equivalent to 1 trillion nuclear blasts and transformed it into organized transmissions aimed straight at our planet. That surge in luminosity by a factor of 40 held no element of chance. It came across as intentional, purposeful, and utterly beyond the capabilities of any ordinary celestial body. Yet this marks only the start. Fresh computations drawn from path information gathered by 227 global observatories show that 3I Atlas possesses a mass of no less than 33 billion tons, rendering it more compact than the stuff of neutron stars. Strangely, it conceals its pull of gravity. The equations hold firm, yet they point to realities that undermine our prior assumptions about substance, power, and the boundaries of engineering. Now, consider what's being withheld. Those 20 experts who spoke out represent merely the surface. Scores of additional investigators faced coercion to stay quiet. Their grants hung in jeopardy, their livelihoods ruined simply for posing inconvenient inquiries. At the same time, advanced orbital monitoring systems built for defense purposes have picked up patterned radiations from 3I Atlas that align with nothing in recognized cosmic occurrences. The time frame for whatever 3I Atlas intends is narrowing to mere weeks, not extended periods. That December cutoff stems from no guesswork. It arises from orbital calculations and the most intricate operational blueprint on record. Be it an initial encounter or a harbinger of grave peril, the proof indicates we're on the verge of realizing that humankind has always shared the cosmos with others. Prior to plunging into this enigma alongside you, do tap that like icon and sign up for notifications to follow this evolving saga. And drop in the comments your location, the local hour, and the most bizarre incident you've ever encountered. Chapter 1: The Bombshell from the 20 Scientists. On September 19, 2025, an extraordinary event transpired that demolished the settled agreement within the field of astronomy. An academic article surfaced on the web, endorsed by 20 specialists from organizations spanning 3 continents, and its findings proved so incendiary that soon after, professional lives faced jeopardy, budgets came under scrutiny, and the whole scholarly apparatus rushed to suppress what it deemed a perilous violation of norms. The document's heading seemed innocuously routine: Statistical Analysis of Trajectory Anomalies in Interstellar Object 3I Atlas. Yet concealed amid its intricate numerical models and measured scholarly phrasing lay a verdict destined to haunt stargazers for many sleepless nights ahead. These 20 scholars had gambled their occupational standing on one chilling claim. 3I Atlas showed behavior alien to any expected from a natural formation. Dr. Elena Vasquez, an authority in planetary motion at the European Southern Observatory, served as principal writer. Her background stood unassailable, her approach impeccable, and her finding utterly ruinous to standard theories. In private messages that emerged later via scholarly transparency petitions, she confided to a peer, "The trajectory data is keeping me awake at night. We're looking at precision navigation that would make our best spacecraft engineers jealous. This isn't random, this isn't natural, and we need to start having very uncomfortable conversations about what that means." The document's core thesis rested on statistical analysis, so the analysis proved so thorough that even doubters found it hard to spot weaknesses. Upon the initial detection of 3 Atlas hurtling across the cosmos at close to 200,000 km/h, its route appeared ordinary aside from its clear extraterrestrial source. Merely one more stellar drifter, hurled from a far-off stellar cluster, drifting aimlessly in emptiness across eons. Yet once additional telescopes followed its course, an anomaly surfaced that resisted any rational account. Rather than merely traversing our star system, the entity was nearing three key worlds, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, with a degree of accuracy the experts deemed unattainable. The odds of these alignments happening purely by coincidence stood below 1 in 5,000. Dr. James Chen, an astrodynamics authority from MIT who supplied vital computations for the review, grappled to devise terrestrial comparisons for their findings. Picture yourself in New York launching a dart that strikes the target center in London, he shared with peers during confidential talks that eventually surfaced publicly. Now, picture that dart rebounding flawlessly to nail targets in Paris and Rome as well. That's basically the phenomenon unfolding with 3I Atlas. Only the spans involve hundreds of millions of kilometers. Such exactitude in numbers rendered the report profoundly unsettling. Far from fuzzy sightings or personal views, the path information remained solid, checkable, and open to scrutiny by any group equipped with the processing power to examine it. Those 20 researchers had merely crunched the figures that peers hesitated to tackle. Every close planetary encounter unfolded with meticulous timing. 3 Atlas was set to skim past Venus at 0. 2 astronomical units come October 15th. Mars faced a nearer look on October 3rd, the intruder drawing within Eero. 19 astronomical units. The colossal orb of Jupiter awaited probing from 0. 36 astronomical units on March 16th the next year. Yet precision alone didn't unsettle the team. Efficiency did that. Should engineers have crafted 3 Atlas to probe the star system's primary orbs, no sleeker itinerary could exist. Its flight path enabled optimal intel collection on every world, with scant need for adjustments that burned fuel. Dr. Maria Santos, an expert in trajectory design at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, not formally involved in the work, but who vetted the figures on her own, discovered she had to face ideas that upended her perspectives. Our teams devote years to charting paths for our probes to meet far easier goals, she admitted to Close Associates. This display hints at mission orchestration, demanding either astonishing fortune or deliberate intent. The document cataloged the path breakdown in exhaustive detail, pages brimmed with orbital physics formulas, each layering onto the unavoidable verdict that 3 Atlas pursued a route optimizing knowledge gains against chances of spotting. It bore the mark of purposeful strategy. Yet nothing proved more alarming than its entry angle. In contrast to usual cosmic intruders arriving from scattered angles, 3I Atlas originated from Sagittarius, aimed straight at the Milky Way's core amid a dense stellar backdrop that rendered prior spotting all but unfeasible. The entity seemed hidden on purpose right up to the brink. Its schedule raised equal red flags. 3 Tune. Atlas surfaced in view solely upon hitting Jupiter's orbital path, affording people just a handful of months for watching and dissecting before it slipped sunward from sight. Extended viewing time might have permitted deeper probing, potentially unveiling concealed truths that their creators would rather conceal. At Stanford, Dr. Robert Kim, an expert in computer modeling, had executed countless simulations to confirm the path computations. Yet he began doubting long-held beliefs in his field. In confidential exchanges, he noted that natural entities do not refine their routes for efficiency. They adhere to physical principles without any hint of deliberate planning. This pattern suggests a deliberate design, crafted with clear goals in view. The scholarly backlash against the study arrived rapidly and harshly. Just a day after release, prominent astronomers from NASA, the European Space Agency, and leading global institutions released declarations challenging the approach, the findings, and the author's expertise itself. Dr. Margaret Thompson, NASA's principal researcher on minor solar system objects, convened an urgent media briefing, labeling the effort as conjectural interpretation that oversteps the evidence's limits. She stressed that 3I Atlas displayed unmistakable traits of a genuine comet, including evident gas emissions and an emerging envelope. Yet the official reaction exposed a deeper unease. Instead of confronting the detailed numerical proofs in the document, detractors targeted the reliability of bold assertions, leaving the path information untouched, as though validating its precision might validate inquiries the powers that be wished to sidestep. Elena Vasquez ended up amid a career tempest. Her supervisor at the European Southern Observatory summoned her for a discussion voicing worries over her investigative focus. Longtime partners in research grew elusive for consultations. Event planners started withdrawing offers to present. Comparable strains hit the paper's other contributors. Dr. James Chen from MIT noticed his privileges to key processing tools had been subtly curtailed. Dr. Santos from JPL discovered she was barred from routine project strategy sessions. The signal rang loud. Defying established views invites career fallout. Still, the group of 20 researchers had foreseen such pushback. Through discreet dialogues, they weighed the dangers of going public and resolved that the stakes outweighed personal ambitions. Should 3i Atlas truly signal artificial origins, then the public merited awareness, no matter the discomfort to official circles. The document's debut sparked reactions well outside scholarly bounds. In mere hours, it garnered more than 50,000 downloads. Reporters in science vied to decode the complexities while seeking simple ways to convey the ramifications. Digital networks buzzed with surging debates on extraterrestrial arrivals and official concealments. Hobbyists in astronomy worldwide launched their own path examinations, drawing on open-access orbit records to test the study's math. Strikingly, various separate reviews upheld the quantitative results, even from those unlinked to the initial team. This widespread involvement posed a dilemma for officials seeking to shape the story. Distinct from earlier disputed celestial assertions needing rare tools or privileged info to assess, the 3 Atlas path records lay open to all. Those with adequate math skills could readily see the object's route defied normal probabilities. Web forums focused on monitoring 3i Atlas surged in participants. Online communities, once drawing only a handful of passionate stargazers, now buzzed with input from multitudes, reaching into the thousands and drawing in expert researchers who chose hidden identities to safeguard their careers. Those 20 experts had braced for backlash within their field, yet the surge of widespread attention their study sparked caught them off guard. Dr. Vasquez would later confess that she envisioned a subdued scholarly exchange focused on methods and findings. Rather, she emerged as a key figure in an international dialogue probing humankind's role amid the cosmos. Security outfits across nations zeroed in on the study's outcomes and the uproar they provoked. Restricted reports were compiled for top-level policymakers, detailing the ramifications of verifying that 3 Atlas embodied machine intellect. The projections depicted were grim, ranging from cordial knowledge-sharing to perils endangering all human society. Yet the study's greatest feat lay in surpassing what generations of SETI efforts could not deliver. It shifted notions of extraterrestrial encounters from mere conjecture into rigorous, vetted scholarly scrutiny. 20 qualified investigators had openly declared that the proof pointed to engineered beginnings for 3i Atlas. The core scientific community faced a bind with no easy out. Validating the path calculations would endorse the chance that otherworldly minds were reaching our world. Brushing it aside completely might come across as stifling valid research pursuits. The chosen path appeared to be total avoidance of the study, banking on public curiosity, waning sans any formal involvement. But that approach proved counterproductive. The lack of comment from leading space observatories struck numerous observers as proof that the findings were too risky for open discussion. Wild speculation ran rampant without authoritative counters, frequently spinning tales wilder than the 20 experts' own ideas. Dr. Vasquez and her team turned into uneasy stars, their professional networks swamped by outreach from audio hosts, film producers, and reporters globally. The bulk turned down such overtures, opting to allow their work to stand alone instead of jeopardizing career ties more. But the harm had set in. The study injected unprecedented scholarly weight into ideas of extraterrestrial visits. The exacting math behind the path breakdown rendered rejection as mere fancy or delusion untenable. With September closing and October dawning, 37. Atlas pressed on unyieldingly across our star system, apparently unaware of the turmoil stirring below. Each passing day yielded fresh sightings, additional metrics that bolstered or undermined competing views on its essence. The entity transcended mere celestial oddity. It evolved into a gauge of our species' readiness to face ideas upending core beliefs about existence in the stars. And those 20 bold analysts who released their breakdown guaranteed such ideas demanded reckoning. The path metrics rang true. 3i Atlas traced a route hinting at deliberate crafting over mere happenstance. If that crafting stemmed from undiscovered cosmic forces or minds from afar was yet unclear. But one truth stood firm. The snug notion of solitary existence in the vastness had been rattled at its foundation by 20 data-driven explorers. He pursued the inquiry relentlessly, no matter the toll on his reputation or livelihood. The explosive revelation had landed. Now the issue loomed. Was the global scientific establishment, along with humankind at large, ready to grapple with the consequences? Chapter 2. Lowe's mothership hypothesis spreads like wildfire. Avi Lowe had forged his professional path by daring to explore the improbable. Holding the Frank B. Jr. Professorship in Science at Harvard University and serving as the astronomy department's most enduring leader ever, he had secured the privilege to venture into notions that might ruin less resilient experts. Yet, even for someone of his bold caliber, the entry he released on his Medium platform dated August 5, 2025, stood as utterly transformative. It opened with Lowe's signature fusion of exacting equations and straightforward explanations, laying out the core attributes of 30th Atlas in language accessible to fellow specialists and everyday readers alike. He examined its dimensions, velocity, and path with the sharp detachment that established him as a premier figure in astrophysics worldwide. Then arrived the section destined for capture in images, dissemination, and scrutiny by countless individuals globally. From an engineering standpoint, Lowe asserted with the steady confidence born of years in theoretical physics, the probable case entails a primary vessel dispatching numerous scouts that execute a reverse Oberth operation to decelerate near the sun's closest point and veer toward our planet, leveraging stellar gravity for the boost. A mothership. That phrase by itself ignited a torrent of coverage in the press, burning intensely for weeks on end. Yet Lowe refused to merely introduce the idea and withdraw into scholarly seclusion. Instead, he delved into a meticulous breakdown of how such a launch could unfold, backed by computations demonstrating that compact devices might arrive on Earth mere months after separation from the central craft. His projections pinpointed the schedule as both exact and alarming. The release would happen as 3i Atlas hit its solar nearest point of phase, when the entity would vanish from terrestrial telescopes, obscured by the star's overwhelming glare. Lowe determined with unerring math that any dispatched scouts would arrive in a narrow slot from November 21st through December 5th, 2025. The ramifications stretched far past easy grasp. Should Lowe prove right, people weren't merely witnessing an extraterrestrial traveler gliding past their star system. They were observing the rollout of what might rank as history's grandest exploratory endeavor, or potentially a much darker prospect. The Harvard scholar took pains to avoid guessing at motives, though online forums showed no such caution. In just 6 hours after going live, the blog entry drew more than 800,000 visitors. By day's close, views topped 2 million. Media organizations everywhere raced to secure his input, but the scientist appeared to have stepped away from the spotlight entirely. Replies from his institutional account came via auto-notification, declaring him unreachable for statements, while his lab team professed total unawareness of his location. The moment struck at the worst possible juncture for NASA and fellow agencies, who were already battling to shape the story surrounding 3i Atlas. Right when they believed they had framed it convincingly as a peculiar yet ordinary comet, a leading astrophysicist had openly floated the possibility of it functioning as an extraterrestrial command craft readying to unleash something akin to an assault squadron. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, NASA's astrobiology head and a long-standing associate of Lowe's, suddenly faced the daunting task of addressing queries on hypotheses from a figure she viewed as both ally and guide. Professor Lowe's conjecture stretches well past the bounds of current data, she declared at an emergency media briefing. While we respect although his work in astrophysics has been substantial, these specific notions from Mitchell amount to speculation instead of rigorous examination. Yet, the calm rebuttal from Mitchell got completely overshadowed by the overwhelming surge of public outcry sparked by Lowe's online entry. Online networks saw record-breaking surges in activity as individuals circulated hypotheses, anxieties, and readiness plans for an occurrence that countless deemed the pivotal moment in humanity's timeline. The tag alien mothership surged to worldwide prominence in mere hours, racking up more than 10 million entries during that initial 7-day stretch. Vendors of preparedness items noted enormous jumps in purchases as folks geared up for vague threats they struggled to define, yet sensed an urgent need to confront. Reserves of crisis rations, devices for cleansing water, and tools for staying connected vanished from stores at a frantic pace. In various large urban centers, impromptu rallies erupted, with crowds pressing officials for openness regarding the entity, brandishing placards that declared, "Tell us the truth about 3 Atlas, and we have a right to know what's coming." Within the realm of experts, Lowe's bold move created a profound split. Certain peers praised his boldness in venturing into unorthodox realms, whereas others fretted that such guesswork was undermining the trustworthiness of legitimate celestial studies. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a specialist in astrophysics based at the University of Chicago, voiced the irritation shared by numerous when she shared with a reporter focused on science. "I has always pushed boundaries, and that's been valuable to the field. But this feels different. This feels like he's abandoned scientific caution entirely." Still, the framework Lowe proposed didn't stem from reckless imaginings or hopeful delusions. His notion of a reverse Orth maneuver drew from proven principles of orbital dynamics, a method that earthly technicians have applied for years to adjust the paths of space vehicles. The principle entailed leveraging the pull of a massive celestial form to alter a craft's velocity and course, though flipped around to decelerate instead of speed up. Dr. James Harrison, an authority on propulsion at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory who contributed to several expeditions to Mars, ended up grudgingly validating the conceptual viability of what Lowe outlined. In an article vetted by peers and released shortly after Lowe's web publication, Harrison illustrated how the reverse Orth maneuver idea proved not merely feasible, but ideal for the type of operation Lowe envisioned. Should one be crafting a voyage across the stars aimed at releasing scouts within an unfamiliar star system, Harrison noted in precise scholarly phrasing that still backed Lowe's key argument. Such a method would boost operational effectiveness, all while curbing the chances of being spotted. It embodies sophisticated design that every strategist in space travel would respect. The scholarly weight behind Harrison's evaluation rendered it challenging for officials to brush off the mothership hypothesis as mere illusion. A researcher from NASA had put forth in a prestigious periodical that a scheme for extraterrestrial dispersal wasn't merely workable, but sensible. This backing triggered renewed currents of conjecture across expert circles and mainstream outlets alike. Hobbyists operating shortwave radios globally abruptly emerged as key players in probing the 3i Atlas phenomenon. Enthusiasts of ham radio, a good number of whom had idly tracked the anomaly from its initial spotting, started logging odd transmissions that appeared to align with the schedule Lowe suggested for releases. These emissions came across as faint and sporadic, readily chalked up to gear glitches or earthly disruptions, yet their synchronization proved too striking to wholly disregard. Marcus Chen, a former electronics expert and dedicated radio aficionado residing in New Mexico, ranked among the initial observers to detect organized sequences within the bursts he captured. "I've been tuning into the cosmos for 40 years, he detailed in a video on YouTube that swiftly drew beyond 3 million watchers. "I know what cosmic background radiation sounds like. I know experts in audio analysis noted that the noises did not resemble typical pulsar emissions at all. Instead, they exhibited a structured quality suggestive of encoded messages. Independent sound engineers examining Chen's captured audio uncovered clear numerical sequences, which certain observers viewed as deliberate efforts at interstellar signaling. These emissions followed rhythms aligned with prime sequences and Fibonacci series. Such configurations defied random cosmic origins in their improbability, yet mirrored the deliberate signals that earthly researchers might broadcast to signal awareness to extraterrestrial entities. The ham radio enthusiasts split dramatically on the import of these findings. A number of hobbyists claimed to pick up comparable anomalies via their setups, whereas skeptics maintained that their receivers detected no deviations from the norm. Digital discussion boards focused on radio-based stargazing devolved into fierce clashes pitting proponents against doubters, with escalating disputes over analytical approaches and evidence handling. Official bodies grappled with an unprecedented challenge in controlling the flow of information. Validating the reports from amateur operators could bolster notions that 3 Atlas was engaging in outreach. Brushing them aside completely might suggest efforts to bury valid empirical findings. Authorities opted for deliberate reticence, an approach that merely intensified speculation and plots among the public. At the same time, Lowe's concept of a central vessel gained surprising backing from aerospace professionals. Modeling efforts by unaffiliated scholars verified the efficiency of his outline dispersal method for a probe-based exploration from beyond the stars. The calculations proved refined, the principles of motion reliable, and the strategic benefits irrefutable. Dr. Elisa Park, an MIT engineer focused on complex orbital interactions among multiple objects, released an in-depth evaluation of LOE's framework that rippled through academic and defense circles alike. Her findings showed how 3 Atlas might release numerous miniature scouts without altering its core path, establishing an extensive mapping array across the solar system's core regions. The arrangement Loeb outlined would enable methodical scanning of key worlds while safeguarding mission discretion, Park asserted in phrasing evocative of operational directives rather than scholarly discourse. This embodies advanced operational design, surpassing our existing technological reach. Global reactions to Lowe's hypothesis exposed profound anxieties held by administrations worldwide concerning 3. Agencies in space exploration, once quick to reject otherworldly explanations, started qualifying their declarations with precise wording on active probes and shifting insights. The Russian stance stood out sharply. Dmitry Volkov, director of the Institute for Space Research under the Russian Academy of Sciences, spoke to government broadcasters advocating for swift growth and collaborative oversight of 3 Atlas. This entity embodies occurrences beyond the grasp of any isolated country, he remarked candidly. We need to combine our assets and exchange observations to grasp the nature of this sighting. China's National Space Administration, known for guarding details on orbital monitoring, abruptly released precise orbit information to global collaborators. Such openness without precedent sparked inquiries into the discoveries, prompting Chinese experts to deviate from long-held protocols on disclosure. The European Space Agency unusually assembled a crisis meeting for its Orbital Threat Assessment Initiative, uniting specialists from various nations to weigh the ramifications of Lowe's outline. While the formal results of that leaked papers indicated that the organization was discreetly crafting backup strategies to handle possible extraterrestrial encounters, though the gathering itself stayed under wraps. Digital networks faced challenges in curbing the surge of material tied to Lowe's concept of a mother vessel. Baseless notions proliferated at an alarming rate, blending valid worries from science with outlandish ideas of extraterrestrial assaults and official concealments. Systems powered by algorithms boosted the most captivating material, typically the flashiest and most unreliable details. Lowe's outlined situations started showing up in tangible effects on the psyche. Experts in mental well-being noted sharp rises in consultations about unease, especially among those fixated on figuring out trajectories of arrival and schedules for rollout. Virtual communities sprang up to aid those coping with a condition that mind specialists were now calling contact anxiety, the dread that our species lacked readiness for impending events. Faith-based groups wrestled with doctrinal ramifications they had scarcely pondered before. Certain figures viewed 3 Atlas as evidence of heavenly meddling, whereas others regarded it as a challenge to belief. The Vatican released a thoughtfully phrased declaration recognizing that divine Christian spans boundless options, all while stressing that apprehension must not eclipse confidence in faith's direction. Yet the most unsettling aspect might have been Lowe's breakdown of his so-called stealth rollout edge. His computations showed that whatever scouts 3 Atlas might dispatch amid its sunward path would stay nearly impossible to spot until they decided to show up. Solar disruptions paired with the scouts' expected tiny dimensions would render detection unfeasible using today's ground-level Earth tech. That rollout phase offered ideal concealment for actions. In a subsequent entry that drew even greater notice than his first idea, Lowe penned that any dispatched items would blend into the sun's rays, concealed amid the radio wave turmoil right next to our sun. Once they grew visible, they would already occupy their intended spots. The ramifications of such hidden prowess ran deep. Should Lowe prove right, our kind could stay utterly oblivious to any scout release until those items opted to connect or expose themselves. The notion of extraterrestrial oversight, functioning unseen near our planet, marked a core change in perceptions of global defense. Spy outfits globally confronted situations beyond any prior drills. The chance that our world could imminently shelter alien devices shifted from fanciful tales to actual strategy sessions. Vast Cosmos watch setups, built to follow rocks and junk in space, abruptly gained importance for state protection. Yet, Lowe stayed oddly missing from the widespread talk his notion had sparked. Associates said he had scrapped every talk slot and event turnout. His space at Harvard sat vacant, as faculty insisted they knew nothing of his whereabouts or when he might return. Such a key person's vanishing only fueled the guesses around his bold step into the 3I debate. The mother vessel idea had utterly reshaped the dialogue on our enigmatic guest from afar. A spark of scholarly interest in a peculiar comet had grown into worldwide worry over likely extraterrestrial outreach. As Lowe's projected rollout period drew nearer swiftly, the risks climbed with each passing day. Chapter 3. Anomaly Alert, the Growing Feature Mystery. Dr. Michael Jang had been carrying out standard phototrick scans at the European Southern Observatory when he spotted something, a revelation poised to upend the core principles of astronomy concerning 3I Atlas unfolded on September 27, 2025, shortly after a.m. in the local time zone, as his sensors picked up signals prompting doubts about the accuracy of his instrumentation setup. The entity known as 3I Atlas was enlarging. This differed sharply from the standard swelling astronomers anticipate in comets nearing the sun, where tails elongate and comas broaden due to ice turning to vapor. Data from Jang indicated that the core solid part of the body was itself undergoing tangible growth, manifesting fresh architectural elements absent from earlier scans. For the ensuing 4 hours, Yang meticulously revisited his findings, certain that a basic flaw had crept into his evaluation process. He scrutinized his alignment protocols, inspected his gear for defects, and pored over several months' worth of stored records to confirm nothing glaring had escaped notice. Yet each verification upheld the same inconceivable outcome. 3I Atlas was undergoing dynamic alterations to its form. When confronted with irregular results, the initial response of any researcher is to suspect personal oversight. As Shang recounted at the urgent media session ESO rapidly convened, I double-checked all aspects, then tripled the effort. I enlisted fellow experts to scrutinize my approach, yet the proof stood firm. This entity is evolving in manners that contest our basic grasp of celestial mechanics. The breakthrough by Jung sparked a swift global rally of observational arrays. All prominent facilities equipped to follow 3I Atlas shifted to urgent operations, forging a groundbreaking collaborative surveillance system across borders. Information flooding in during the subsequent 3 days sketched a scenario beyond the scope of any standard reference material for experts to decipher. Detailed visuals captured by the Hubble Space Telescope uncovered formations resembling precise geometries rising from the body's exterior. These stood apart from the disordered, haphazard shapes usually linked to cometary venting or fragment release. Instead, They exhibited order, balance, and expansion in synchronized designs, hinting at deliberate assembly over organic development. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, an expert in imaging at the Space Telescope Science Institute, who once dismissed notions of extraterrestrial origins, now confronted evidence upending her prior convictions about cosmic entities. Following an unbroken 18-hour review of the Hubble captures, she consented to publicly declare insights destined to jolt the field of astronomy. "We witness the rise of features bearing evident geometric arrangement," she declared in a quickly set-up online broadcasted update, drawing more than 5 million watchers. Such developments exhibit balance, harmony, and progression rhythms incompatible with recognized organic mechanisms. The features seem to protrude from designated spots on 3I Atlas's exterior, extending externally in arrangements evoking nearly antenna-like or detection setups. Spectral examinations indicated composition from substances starkly unlike the primary mass, displaying spectral signatures aligned with intricate metal alloys instead of the anticipated icy rock blend in a comet. Adding to the unease of these sightings was the pace of transformation. Sequential imaging displayed the features lengthening and flexing live, with motions unfolding at rates defying clarification via heat-induced swelling, pull of gravity, or any alternative innate driver experts could pinpoint. Hobbyists armed with advanced tools started sharing their sightings of the expanding features, offering separate validation that the event extended beyond select elite installations. Carlos Mendez, an amateur stargazer operating a private observatory in Chile, which matched the capabilities of numerous professional setups, recorded video that garnered more than 15 million views during its initial week on the internet. "For 2 decades, I've been capturing images of distant celestial bodies," Mendez stated in the widely acclaimed YouTube narration paired with the accelerated video sequence. "I'm well versed in gear constraints, air turbulence effects, and false imaging effects. None of that applies to this. Instead, we're observing an entity dynamically reshaping itself live on a magnitude and pace that eludes any ordinary rationale." The recording depicted 3I Atlas across a 12-hour watch, displaying unmistakable signs of fresh formations, not just expanding, but seemingly shifting and realigning. The consequences proved overwhelming. Should these sightings hold true, they pointed to machinery at work, not mere cosmic events. The world of science plunged into turmoil as experts grappled with data that upended long-held doctrines spanning generations. Urgent assemblies gathered at NASA central offices, the European Space Agency, and leading academic institutions globally. Review procedures, typically spanning months, shrank to mere days while researchers hurried to release their breakdowns of the swiftly unfolding crisis. Yet the most alarming updates stemmed from radio observatories tracking 3I Atlas for radio wave outputs. Faint and sporadic emissions abruptly intensified into steady and enduring pulses, syncing precisely with the appearance of every novel material feature. Dr. Frank Wilson, head of the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, confronted an extraordinary dilemma, compelled to recognize findings that undermined his enduring dedication to standard scientific paradigms. "We're picking up organized radio wave outputs that align perfectly with eyewitness accounts of structural alterations in the entity," he conceded, a congressional session that subsequently surfaced in various media leaks. The odds of this alignment being mere chance border on statistical absurdity. These weren't haphazard radiostatic or typical stellar occurrences. Digital scrutiny uncovered numerical designs, series of prime figures, and seemingly blueprint-like illustrations embedded within the signal framework. Above all, the transmissions seemed aimed squarely at our planet, not scattered aimlessly across the cosmos. Security outfits worldwide grappled with a scenario beyond any prior strategic foresight. The notion of humankind beholding the live assembly of extraterrestrial devices shifted from abstract conjecture to tangible fact in just 1 week's time. Confidential papers from the Department of Defense exposed how defense planners had discreetly engaged safeguards crafted amid Cold War hostilities for handling unforeseen tech perils. Infogrids entered heightened surveillance mode. Buried command bunkers, idle in full operation since the 1980s atomic standoffs, swiftly returned to active duty. The general populace reacted swiftly and fiercely. Online sharing sites buckled repeatedly from the surge of users posting photos, clips, and ever more frantic speculations on the expanding edifices. Broadcast outlets ditched routine lineups to deliver non-stop reporting on what pundits deemed the paramount event in mankind's chronicle. Global stock exchanges endured wild swings as traders wrestled with the fallout from verified extraterrestrial machinery. Technology firms witnessed enormous jumps in stock values. Based speculation swirled around potential avenues for sharing knowledge as conventional sectors grappled with doubts over their place in an era following contact. Clergy members confronted inquiries that their doctrinal education had left them utterly unequipped to handle. From the Vatican came a thoughtfully phrased declaration recognizing the cosmos as harboring enigmas surpassing mortal grasp, yet underscoring how sacred affection embraces every aspect of existence, irrespective of where it springs from. Various faith-based groups labored to align their teachings with the undeniable presence of extraterrestrial minds. Yet the most striking development involved the expanding edifices on 33rd Atlas, which seemed to adhere to a fixed rollout timeline. Examination of how these forms materialized indicated the entity was methodically assembling varied configurations, with each one evidently fulfilling a distinct role within a broader scheme. Dr. Lisa Chen, an MIT specialist in systems engineering tasked with scrutinizing these build-up sequences, released an initial assessment that rippled alarm across academic and defense circles alike. Her findings pointed to 33rd Atlas erecting what looked like an extensive detection network, progressively gaining the means to probe various zones across the solar system. This arrangement of expansions strikes as far too methodical and intentional to arise by chance, Chen noted in a rushed yet thoroughly evidenced paper. What unfolds before us is the deliberate assembly of equipment resembling research tools. The entity scrutinizes us with equal fervor to our own gaze upon it, the consequences stretched into realms too vast to quantify. Should Chen's conclusions hold true, 32. Atlas transcended the role of a mere interstellar traveler drifting through our system. Instead, it functioned as a deliberate exploratory endeavor, methodically collecting insights on our planet and its denizens. People weren't merely witnessing initial encounter from afar. They stood as the central focus of scrutiny from a far-flung intellect that had bridged the stars to examine them closely. Public sector leaders wrestled with the daunting task of disseminating details on an unfolding crisis, outpacing standard negotiation frameworks. Media sessions devolved into practices of evasive phrasing and subtle rejections of outright rejection, admitting to odd sightings without endorsing the extraterrestrial awareness that grew ever plainer to observers tracking the events. NASA head Janet Peterson delivered an address destined to rank among the era's most dissected orations, speaking to the public via a nationwide evening TV slot. What we see defies our established views on heavenly motions and substance properties, she declared, selecting terms with the exactness of a statecraft exchange. We hold firm to our pledge, methodical inquiry and openness to the populace as we strive to grasp these occurrences. Yet away from such calibrated disclosures to the world, far more stark discussions unfolded in secure sessions for top authorities, where depictions in those secluded gatherings revealed humankind confronting an entity surpassing all prior blueprints for encounter that strategists had pondered. 3. Atlas defied the archetype of a remote, inert, otherworldly presence long envisioned by SETI experts over generations. Rather, it proved dynamic, responsive, and evidently pursuing its assessment of earthly society as people observed powerless from distances spanning hundreds of millions of kilometers. The formations sprouting from the entity's exterior kept transforming and proliferating daily. No matter what 33 Atlas ultimately signified, it rendered its engineered essence harder than ever to dismiss or account for via established scholarly paradigms. Hobbyists in radio transmission began picking up fresh signal varieties as operational signals emerged from each emerging form, indicating that the entity was deliberately experimenting with various signaling methods and spectral bands. Certain technicians reported sensing what seemed like probing sequences, as though extraterrestrial machinery was carefully probing the planet's radio emissions. The enigma of these expanding elements had elevated 3I Atlas from a peculiar celestial body to irrefutable signs of intelligence not originating from this world. Initial cautious doubt among scientists toward accounts of irregular actions was yielding to the acknowledgement that people were observing an event without parallel in human chronicles. Yet the formations kept expanding. Every fresh addition contributed to a more intricate network of enigmatic devices functioning live as observers pondered the impending developments. Chapter 4. CME collision, first contact, or cosmic accident. The dates of September 24th and 25th, 2025 would endure in memory as the instance when 3I at last shifted from enigmatic oddity to conclusive confirmation that humankind confronted an entity surpassing known natural occurrences. This shift's catalyst stood unmatched in space science annals, a head-on clash involving an extrasolar body and one of the sun's fiercest outbursts. On September 19th, a coronal mass ejection and outburst of countless tons of ionized matter from the solar atmosphere burst forth with the intensity of 1,000,000 billion atomic blasts. Such incidents arise routinely within the star's routine fluctuations, propelling electrified gas outward at speeds surpassing 1,000 kilometers. NASA's Space Weather Prediction Center followed this specific ejection via routine surveillance methods, with advanced simulations forecasting its passage through void regions, evading significant celestial targets by wide berth. Those projections overlooked 3I Labs positioned directly in the onslaught's trajectory. Dr. Sandra Martinez, a heliphysicist at the National Solar Observatory focused on solar breeze dynamics, tracked the ejection's advance until her sensors captured an occurrence that contradicted core tenets of cosmic mechanics from her professional tenure. The impact struck exactly at 14 hours, 37 minutes Universal Coordinated Time on September 24th, as the ejection's forefront crashed against 3I Atlas with power rivaling innumerable atomic explosions. Such an ejection strike ought to obliterate a minor body outright or merely bypass it with slight disturbance, Martinez noted in the urgent assembly of experts called amid incoming observations. Neither anticipated result materialized in our findings. Our sight defied basic notions of material and force exchanges in the void. Rather than disintegrating or being deflected by the immense pressures, 3I Atlas seemed to deliberately handle the encounter, directing the vast surge of ionized matter via the cryptic appendages it had developed in prior periods. Its luminosity surged precisely by a factor of 40, turning it from an observatory novelty into a fleeting sight for unaided earthly vision even at its vast remove. Yet the surge in illumination held no claim to the most remarkable trait. That distinction belonged to the deliberate orchestration of the sequence. Spectral examinations showed the power intake as keenly discerning, various bands of radiant energy routed via distinct segments of the entity's evolving architectural framework. The display evoked above all an advanced engineered apparatus crafted expressly. Scientists have theorized ways to capture and harness the turbulent power from cosmic tempests. A seasoned plasma physicist from Princeton University, Dr. James Thompson, whose life work focused on how solar winds clash with the protective shields of planets, suddenly doubted the core principles that shaped his professional path. In a secret document eventually exposed to probing reporters, he noted that the entity seemed to deliberately control the clash with the coronal mass ejection. Such mastery over magnetic fields and power handling demands capabilities far beyond what we grasp today, surpassing it by vast degrees. Precisely 4 hours and 17 minutes marked the duration of this power intake phase, in which 3I Atlas methodically reshaped the wild plasma outburst into structured electromagnetic waves. Observatories tuned to radio frequencies globally picked up patterned broadcasts originating from the entity throughout that span. These broadcasts carried clear hallmarks of machine intelligence and purposeful outreach efforts. Nothing like these signals had ever registered from the cosmos before. They evaded the erratic radiostatic typical of stellar events. Likewise, they transcended the basic numeric sequences experts once imagined as signs of initial alien encounters. Instead, intricate nested messages surfaced, laden with immense data volumes tucked into elaborate coding schemes no earthly devices could unravel. The head of the SETI Institute, Dr. Alan Foster, a lifelong hunter of such cosmic whispers, confronted the bizarre reality of declaring that our species might have just intercepted its inaugural verified message from beyond Earth. In a global media event aired across all prominent outlets, he declared that the broadcast's framework showed exacting math, packed data layers, and clever encoding pointing to superior tech intellect. This looks like a data exchange of immense scope and refinement, hinting powerfully at origins outside our world. Yet the essence of these messages stayed stubbornly locked away, defying all cracking techniques from our planet's top computing arrays. Specialists in code breaking from the National Security Agency, Britain's government communications headquarters, and parallel bodies globally got tasked discreetly with the most urgent decryption push since the Allies battled the Enigma code in World War II. Their findings proved equally captivating and alarming. The broadcasts relied on math foundations for secrecy that our field hadn't uncovered or applied. Certain experts proposed the secrecy method was itself a key element of the dispatch, showcasing the originator's prowess more than hiding particular details. Yet the most unsettling revelation involved how these messages didn't scatter aimlessly across the cosmic expanse. Detailed scrutiny of their travel paths showed intentional direction toward our planet, with certain elements zeroing in on precise locales like dense urban hubs and vital tech setups. A scholar in signal interpretation from the University of California, Berkeley, Dr. Maria Santos, released a study that rippled alarm through researchers and spy networks alike. Her findings implied 3 Atlas went further than mere dialogue with us. Rather, it seemed engaged in a methodical scan of our society's tech landscape. The broadcast routes aligned closely with worldwide human concentrations. Santos detailed in a scholarly yet extensively censored study the mapping of population concentrations, radio emissions from key metropolitan areas, and positions of our premier research facilities. Such actions suggest organized scouting and intelligence collection, not overtures toward amicable dialogue. The consequences loomed vast and alarming. Should Santos's evaluation hold true, humankind faced more than mere sightings of extraterrestrial devices within their cosmic neighborhood. An advanced mind was methodically inventorying and evaluating them, having intentionally traversed immense interstellar voids to make contact. Worldwide official reactions pivoted sharply from scholarly interest to pressing defense priorities. Armed bases entered elevated readiness modes. Vital network defenses were reinforced to counter possible radio disruptions. Contingency measures, previously confined to hypothetical drills and secret strategies, were discreetly set in motion. Civilian reactions proved just as intense, though far more overt. The solar flare impact and following broadcasts were spotted by hobbyist stargazers and wireless enthusiasts globally, rendering futile any efforts by officials to curb data dissemination or shape societal views on the incidents. Digital networks saw record surges in usage as individuals exchanged instant reports, expert breakdowns, and mounting frenzied guesses regarding extraterrestrial motives. The CME collision tag gathered more than 50 million entries in the initial 2 days. Streaming sites buckled time and again from the influx of personal recordings and discussions. Virtual groups focused on monitoring 3i Atlas ballooned from mere thousands to millions of participants shortly after the encounter. Fresh information underwent swift scrutiny, examination, and discussion among throngs of volunteer experts who frequently rivaled or surpassed the pace of formal research bodies. Marcus Rodriguez, the Arizona-based hobbyist skywatcher whose initial sightings drew broad notice, unexpectedly led an international data-sharing web encompassing expert scholars, defense experts, and everyday people, bonded by their resolve to grasp the unfolding events. No longer mere bystanders, Rodriguez declared in a streamed address viewed by over 8 million, we now engage directly in humanity's pivotal inquiry, unable to depend solely on governmental outlets for the full account of these developments. The widespread access to 3I Atlas studies posed novel difficulties for officials habituated to directing data during delicate crises. Significant advances were recorded and circulated by diverse unofficial channels prior to any formal announcements. State bodies reacted to civilian findings instead of spearheading the probe. Faith groups across the globe wrestled with the spiritual ramifications of verified off-world intellect probing earthly society. The solar flare uptake incident offered irrefutable proof of 3I Atlas's engineering prowess, surpassing all known human feats, compelling doubters to recognize the novelty of their encounter. Pope Francis released a measured address urging thoughtful composure and underscoring that godly works include boundless wonders outside mortal comprehension. Additional spiritual figures contended with creed-based dilemmas long overlooked in doctrinal studies. The energy management capabilities, the display of prowess in the coronal mass ejection clash sparked alarming inquiries into the entity's possible uses in warfare. Should 3 Atlas manage to methodically gather and channel the power from such a solar outburst, what additional ways of controlling energy could it achieve? Defense experts across the globe started simulating situations where devices might turn cosmic occurrences into weapons or alter magnetic forces across entire worlds. The consequences for homeland security proved overwhelming, making conventional armed forces liable to irrelevance against such superior tech prowess. Dr. Eliza Park, the MIT systems engineer tasked with examining 3I Atlas's evolving architecture, issued an addendum study zeroing in on the power handling mechanisms exposed in the CME incident. Her examination indicated that the entity showcased abilities breaching multiple presumed boundaries in applied physics. The targeted power intake, instant handling of magnetic fields, and synchronized operational reactions point to tech feats nearing the core constraints of natural laws, Park noted in phrasing that echoed a security briefing more than scholarly discourse. These capabilities suggest engineering principles and energy manipulation technologies that exceed our current understanding by potentially centuries. The global cadre of researchers grappled with upholding standard evaluation methods amid fast-changing events that outstripped usual scholarly release schedules. Urgent measures arose for exchanging vital information. Yet the immense scale and weight of fresh findings tested joint structures built for far milder investigative pursuits. Orbital organizations globally subtly shifted probes and far-reaching surveillance gear to optimize tracking of 3I Atlas's ongoing trajectory. The entity's show of dynamic tech features had shifted its status from mere intrigue for study to a hazard demanding non-stop vigilance. The CME impact uncovered another detail that unsettled those poring over the incident records. The power uptake seemed to boost 3I Atlas's tech potential beyond just fueling current setups. Fresh build elements surfaced right in the midst of and soon following the clash, hinting that the entity drew on captured star power to broaden its functional scope. Hobbyists in radio scanning noted spotting whole fresh classes of emissions after the CME brush. Broadcast forms absent from their prior logs before the impact. Those emissions hinted that 3 Atlas had roused extra mechanisms or functions left inactive until then. The clash's occurrence timing provoked further doubts that left certain watchers profoundly uneasy. The CME hitting 3I Atlas counted as a fairly standard sun flare, yet the entity's reaction implied readiness for precisely that kind of brush. The ordered approach to power collection pointed to sophisticated grasp of sunstorm cycles and purposeful placement to catch the coronal mass ejection. Should 3I Atlas have willfully set itself for the CME meeting, the fallout loomed immense. Such a move would imply the extraterrestrial mind held precise insight into sun dynamics and had charted its path to exploit cosmic power reserves for its tech needs. The clash occurrence had wholly reshaped discussions on 3I at last, moving from guesses on its essence to pressing probes into its aims, and the entity exhibited advanced technological prowess surpassing human achievements by indeterminate degrees, employing those capabilities to probe earthly society. With the close of September and onset of October, 30 resumed its unyielding advance into the core regions of the solar system. It stood exposed as an entity of far greater intricacy and conceivable peril than initial assessments had suggested. The clash with the coronal mass ejection had eradicated the last vestiges of doubt regarding its artificial nature, compelling humankind to face the truth of an encounter with an intellect whose powers and motives lay entirely shrouded in mystery. Chapter 5. Impossible Mass 33. Billion-ton nightmare. For 3 nights without rest, Dr. Richard Kett had labored over computations that ought to have been standard, yet yielded outcomes defying core principles of astronomical knowledge on orbital dynamics. Collaborating with Avi Loeb and Peter Vez, this South African expert in the stars sifted through 4 months' worth of location records for 3I Atlas, unearthing a discovery that would compel the global scientific establishment to grapple with an untenable truth. The entity deviated from the path it was supposed to trace. This went beyond the fine-tuned steering that had already perplexed investigators. At stake were the elemental laws of physics. As bodies traverse the void, they yield to pulls from gravity, the subtle shove of sunlight, and any venting from their exteriors. Such influences induce slight yet quantifiable shifts in direction, which experts leverage to infer weight, makeup, and inner makeup. But 3I Atlas acted as though shielded from influences that demanded an impact on its path. We scrutinized 422 distinct positional readings gathered from 227 sites across the globe. Claude detailed in the briefing that posterity would hail as the instant when the 3 Atlas enigma transcended into the realm of the inexplicable. That dataset covered 4.5 months of unbroken scrutiny, affording matchless accuracy in following the entity's path. The review uncovered a breach of bedrock precepts governing motion in the cosmos. Even with unmistakable signs of substantial venting, the sort of expulsion that ought to generate potent propulsion akin to a rocket 3I Atlas displayed no detectable swerve from a solely gravity-driven route. The ceiling on any extra gravitational push fell below the very margin of error in the detection gear. This forged an unsolvable puzzle. Imagery from the Webb Space Telescope had clocked the entity shedding 150 kilos of substance each second, hurled outward at speeds reaching 440 meters. Per the dictates of Newtonian motion, such depletion demanded a deflection in course large enough to spot without effort, yet the entity pressed onward as if oblivious to the event. Dr. Maria Gonzalez, a specialist in orbital rules at the European Space Agency, who once dismissed notions of extraterrestrial origins, now confronted equations that eluded standard physical frameworks. Should a body shed mass at the pace we witness, with that material spewed in uneven bursts, the core tenet of momentum balance demands alterations in flight, she declared at an urgent session of the International Astronomical Union. Lacking those alterations points to either a profound error in our grasp of physics or the sight of engineering that defies rules of conservation. The ramifications loomed immense. For 3I Atlas to shrug off the pressures meant to veer it astray, it would require a heft vastly exceeding any sensible projection from its dimensions and likely materials. The math was plain, yet its verdict verged on the inconceivable. The bare minimum weight needed to account for the steady path of the object came out to 33 billion tons. For context, that amount equaled the heft of a modest lunar body squeezed down to fit within something no wider than 5 to 12 kilometers across. Such compactness demanded densities rivaling those inside neutron stars, where stuff gets packed so tight that a mere spoonful tips the scales like an entire peak. Yet, that kind of neutron star stuff simply wouldn't hold together amid the chill and low squeeze of space between planets. Experts called in Dr. James Mitchell, an MIT specialist in materials under wild conditions, to check if any familiar substances might handle that wild level of squeeze. After a whirlwind 72 hours of work, his review wrapped up with the verdict that nothing from nature could sustain that kind of pack outside a dying star's heart. Densities like these point to undiscovered oddball forms of matter or some inner build that outstrips our tech by leaps and bounds, he noted in a quick but thorough breakdown. That weight-to-size balance hints at a setup pushing right up against the edges of how matter can possibly arrange itself. The 33-billion-ton estimate sparked a panic spilling over from pure stargazing into wider troubles. Should 3I Atlas actually carry that staggering load, its pull on nearby solar system bits ought to have shown up in observations already. Probes' paths would have veered off course. Nearby Roxas loops would display wobbles, yet sifting through the logs turned up zero signs of any such tugs. That gap opened the door to a truly unnerving idea. Maybe 3I Atlas managed to hide or tweak its own pull, hinting at tech that toys with a core rule of the universe. The fallout for science and building shook foundations, while the risks to people's safety loomed like nightmares. Dr. Sarah Kim, a Caltech star expert turned fierce voice, urging real attention to 3I Atlas, rolled out a deep dive into how tamed gravity might play out for a super-advanced society. Even hurried into print to match the crisis, her write-up sketched out visions that haunted security watchers through sleepless shifts. Tech to bend gravity stands as the peak of what builders can achieve. She penned in words both precise and foreboding. A mind that masters gravity pulls could rework atoms, shift world paths, and tap power wells that make our grasp look puny. News of that weight blew open reactions from global space outfits and armed forces. If 3I Atlas indeed wielded such strange matter wizardry, core ideas on tech bounds and shields demanded total overhaul on the spot. NASA slipped into gear with far-out watch routines that mere weeks back were just thought games. The planetary guard hub set up at first to eye risky space rocks now grappled with something whose dangers outmatched any standard counter. Europe's space group pulled together a crisis huddle for their Orbit Watch initiative, gathering pros in gravity bends, stuff studies, and wild design theory. What came out of that closed-door talk stayed secret, though whispers from pilfered files pointed to plans among Euro researchers for handling brushes with gear that might outpace us by ages untold. Military planners across the globe, suddenly scientists crafted simulations that upended conventional notions of combat and protection strategies. A device able to regulate its own gravitational profile might alter satellite paths, interfere with global communication systems, or influence planetary tidal patterns on vast scales. Traditional ideas of deterrence and safeguarding lost all relevance against such advanced features. The general public's reaction to this widespread disclosure was swift and fervent. Online forums buckled under the weight of debates on gravity manipulation devices and the science of exotic materials. Ideas once confined to speculative fiction now appeared plausibly achievable, sparking rampant conjecture on their effects on society at large. Amateur stargazers and independent researchers launched their own checks, drawing on open-access orbital data to validate the path evaluations behind the 33-billion-ton estimate. Various separate computations backed the expert findings, forging agreement that spanned across organizations. Dr. Lisa Park, the MIT systems expert whose prior research had dissected 3 Atlas's structural evolutions, released an additional report probing the demands for housing exotic matter. Her review indicated that the inner design required to sustain that level of compactness would embody engineering far surpassing known human expertise. Housing exotic matter demands oversight of electromagnetic fields, handling of quantum conditions, and construction techniques ranging from atomic particles to large-scale forms. In her detailed engineering evaluation, Park noted, blending these elements into a reliable operational setup implies design skills nearing the boundaries of feasible physics. The consequences reached further than mere tech dominance. If 3 Atlas embodied designs touching the edges of natural laws, its builders had attained near total command over technology. The divide from human skills to this progress wouldn't span ages, but rather core insights into existence. Faith groups around the globe wrestled with doctrinal challenges unforeseen by established teachings. Showcasing tech that could command basic forces prompted inquiries into the essence of origins. Certain spiritual guides viewed these powers as signs of heavenly involvement, whereas others labored to align boundless tech prowess with ideas of sacred rule. The Vatican released a measured declaration, recognizing that godly origins include realms past mortal grasp, all while stressing that faith's dominion outstrips tech feats. Additional faith bodies discovered they needed to craft fresh doctrinal structures to tackle the outcomes of facing intellects wielding tech akin to deity-level might. Spy networks confronted the task of gauging dangers from tech outpacing all their frameworks for judging rival strengths. Standard info collection approaches turned useless against powers possibly encompassing gravity control, exotic material design, and perhaps further innovations unknown to humanity. The 33 billion ton disclosure also sparked troubling queries on 3ILA's power needs, sustaining that astonishing compactness, managing gravitational profiles, and running the intricate tech arrays spotted would demand power origins vastly exceeding human precedents. Dr. Robert Chen, a Caltech authority on energy frameworks who had been simulating the output demands for 3I atlases detected, Dr. Chen unveiled computations on the object's potential that stirred equal parts awe and dread. His examination indicated the entity could be siphoning power straight from the quantum vacuum, drawing on the core force permeating every bit of substance and void. To sustain such feats, the power concentration demanded surpasses all that humanity can produce or even conceive of producing. In his expert evaluation, Chen noted, "The object appears to be accessing energy sources that we can barely describe theoretically, much less harness practically." This idea of quantum vacuum power introduced yet more improbability into the enigma surrounding 3I Atlas. Should the entity manage to pull energy from nothingness, it would command tech capable of running forever, absent any outside propellant. That trait would render it virtually eternal in terms of design. Beyond that, the density breakdown uncovered another issue that unsettled those poring over the findings. Path projections indicated 30 Thrund. Atlas's staggering compactness lacked evenness across its form. Rather, the weight seemed focused in particular zones, aligning with spots where fresh tech formations were emerging. Such a trend implied the entity was dynamically reallocating its strange material to enable varying roles on demand. That skill hinted at instant mastery of material forms, edging toward reshaping existence at its base layer. Hobbyists tuning into 3 Atlas via radio picked up novel signal varieties right after the density report surfaced. These emissions seemed to ramp up in pace and intricacy, as though the entity reacted to people's grasp of its advanced tech. The patterns displayed traits that certain experts saw as trial sequences, methodical scans of assorted messaging standards, and bandwidths. The link in schedule to the density disclosure pointed to 3 Atlas knowing about human scrutiny skills and tweaking its actions in response. That sparked the unsettling notion the entity wasn't just observing our society, but keenly tracking our scholarly advances and insights. The fallout for data protection and tactical foresight ran deep. The 33 billion ton horror had shifted 3I Atlas from an odd arrival to irrefutable evidence humanity faced a mind-wielding tech verging on all-powerfulness. The entity embodied design pushing physics' conceptual edges, running on power origins beyond human ken and showing cognizance of our probing strengths. With October advancing and 3I Atlas pressing nearer the solar system's core, every fresh sighting built a swelling portrait of tech dominance, rendering our own efforts quaint. The density expose compelled people to face the chance they faced judgment from a mind so superior that lines between invention and cosmic rule blurred away. Chapter 6, Solar Blackout, the October Disappearance, October 29, 2025, signaled the start of what stargazers would dub the most exasperating and alarming phase in celestial watching annals. That day, 3I Atlas hit perihelion, its nearest pass by the sun, vanishing in the process behind our star's overwhelming glare for almost 6 weeks. No moment could suit better an intellect favoring secrecy from earthly eyes. Dr. Jennifer Walsh at the Space Telescope Science Institute had feared this juncture ever since initial path estimates scientists verified the trajectory of 3I Atlas across the solar system. She described, in the last media session prior to the onset of communication silence, how they were on the verge of forfeiting direct sight of the most remarkable celestial body identified in cosmic history. Over the coming 6 weeks, observers would remain utterly sightless regarding any maneuvers that 3I Atlas could perform concealed by the sun. Experts in astronomy were no strangers to such solar occlusions. From our planet's vantage, worlds often slip behind the solar disk, fading from telescopes until reappearing opposite. Bodies like Mars, Venus, and Mercury customarily go missing for several weeks amid these foreseeable stellar configurations. Yet 3I Atlas stood apart. Months of prior scrutiny had uncovered an entity in flux, sprouting fresh formations and exhibiting engineering feats implying it was no mere inert traveler through our star's domain. This eclipse's schedule sparked uneasy inquiries into deliberate orchestration. Avi's concept of a central vessel pinpointed the closest solar approach as prime for secretive maneuvers. His computations indicated that deploying scouts or auxiliary vessels then would evade terrestrial detection, shrouded by the sun's corona's intense radio noise. At Caltech, Dr. Sarah Kim labored nonstop to simulate 3I Atlas's feasible feats amid its obscured transit. Her evaluations sketched out possibilities that haunted planetary overseers and security outfits. In a secret document subsequently disclosed to probing reporters, she noted how the solar veil offered flawless concealment for maneuvers. During this span, any gadget rollout, path adjustment, or scouting effort would stay wholly shielded from ground observatories. The consequences loomed immense. Should 3I Atlas prove an engineered entity harboring aggression, those ensuing 6 weeks would grant a prime slot to ready any schemes its operators envisioned. On the flip side, were it a benign exploratory venture, the seclusion might host its peak phase of gathering and scrutinizing data. NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office confronted the novel challenge of bracing for dangers beyond any established guidelines. Conventional rock monitoring depended on steady surveillance to forecast orbits and gauge strike hazards. However, 3I Atlas embodied a puzzle far beyond basic crash worries. It formed a clever apparatus potentially resurfacing post-eclipse with transformed powers or aims. The organization discreetly engaged far-flung surveillance arrays originally crafted for military orbital assets and junk. Global radio dishes got retuned to catch stray emissions skirting the sun's radio barrier. The rosiest projections held that such measures would snag merely the mightiest broadcasts, rendering vast swaths of 3I Atlas's doings undetectable. The European Space Agency resorted to the bold tactic of shifting multiple far-orbit sentinels to sustain partial watch through the veil. These shifts demanded expending vital propellant stocks, curtailing the mission's durations markedly, yet the prospective insights justified the cost. Roscosmos, Russia's orbital outfit, undertook parallel steps, mostly under wraps. Disclosed exchanges hinted that their researchers fretted, especially over the chance experts speculated that 3IA Atlas could exit its journey through the sun's influence, bearing modified path characteristics. Alterations like those demanded deliberate engine use, leaving no question that the entity operated via conscious guidance. Officials from China's National Space Administration upheld their remarkable openness on 3IA Atlas sightings by releasing precise forecasts for the entity's reappearance, assuming it stuck to its present course. These figures offered a schedule allowing global experts to assess if the entity had adjusted its route amid its concealed transit. Hobbyists in astronomy around the globe braced for what promised to be their most aggravating phase together. Over preceding months, they had supplied vital sightings and evaluations toward grasping 3I Atlas. Abruptly, they faced demotion to powerless anticipation as humanity's paramount discovery pursued mysterious maneuvers out of their sight. At his Arizona observatory, now central to grassroots scientific initiatives, Marcus Rodriguez rallied an international alliance to scan the sun's outer atmosphere for odd occurrences signaling 3I Atlas's whereabouts. In a broadcast drawing more than 12 million watchers, he noted, direct views of the entity may elude us, yet indirect signs could emerge should it engage dynamically with solar surroundings. Rodriguez's alliance encompassed thousands of hobbyist stargazers spanning 6 continents, synchronizing their watches to sustain partial insight into 3I Atlas's doings. Watching the sun demanded custom gear and strict precaution measures, yet enthusiasts' commitment sparked a monitoring campaign without parallel. Seasoned sun experts unexpectedly partnered with novice skywatchers lacking prior solar focus during the 3I Atlas crisis. Dr. Lisa Santos from the National Solar Observatory disclosed that her facility now handled solar data volumes surpassing any past record. Much came from watchers shifting gaze from cosmic depths to our closest stellar neighbor. Society felt the mental strain of the looming invisibility in tangible ways. Online forums buzzed with surging debates on 3I's Atlas's possible actions in seclusion. Support circles for worry saw rosters expand as individuals grappled with the unease of solar system unknowns. Faith groups readied for deep contemplation and supplication phases. Numerous guides viewed the sun's veil as a belief trial, compelling humankind to rely on higher guidance amid blindness to occurrences shaping their lineage's destiny. Worldwide, dedicated rituals convened in cathedrals, prayer halls, meeting houses, and shrines. Financial exchanges endured wild instability as traders factored odds from benign encounters to species-ending disasters. Innovation firms watched market worths lurch erratically on bets of informational exchanges. Arms makers rode comparable ups and downs, while pundits questioned earthly arms' utility versus systems defying nature's rules. State bodies confronted upholding calm amid an era of near-total official silence. Emergency protocols launched to curb disturbances sparked by hearsay, guesses, or fears tied to 3I Atlas's unseen operations. Messaging frameworks took shape to counter rampant unfounded narratives set to proliferate. Without solid evidence at hand, the solar blackout's occurrence added further challenges for scholars. Studies launched in a rush to examine 3I Atlas faced an abrupt pause right when they started yielding valuable insights. Grant providers grappled with sustaining backing for probes that could lose purpose based on the entity's actions amid its unseen phase. Dr. Elena Vasquez, principal writer of the initial report detailing 3I Atlas's irregular path, ended up in the odd spot of accurately foreseeing humankind's initial encounter with extraterrestrial smarts, yet powerless to witness potentially the key moment of that encounter. For months, we've recorded how this entity shows signs of clever actions, she noted in her last media talk prior to the blackout. At this point, we must simply hold out and observe whatever that cleverness decides to pursue, knowing our gaze is blocked. Global space experts set up novel data exchange rules for the duration of the blackout. Every sighting, regardless of its slightness or vagueness, got shared right away with every involved group. Such teamwork marked a degree of openness unthinkable back in the Cold War days. Yet, the scale compelled even long-standing rivals in the field to collaborate. Spy outfits geared up for what certain experts dubbed the most extended gap in monitoring ever recorded. Orbital systems built to track ground-based dangers abruptly appeared insufficient against the prospect of otherworldly tech functioning close in our planet's stellar vicinity. Fresh guidelines emerged for handling key strategies when core beliefs about tech prowess could shift in a flash. The solar blackout likewise sparked troubling inquiries into info battles and mind games. Should 3I Atlas embody aggressive smarts, this hidden stretch could have been crafted on purpose to stir peak worry and doubt across earthly societies. Those behind the entity would grasp fully how 6 weeks of total ambiguity could strain civic bodies and communal frameworks more than any outright clash. On the flip side, should 3 at last signal benign aims, the blackout could simply stem from celestial orbits instead of calculated intent. Solar alignment stood as foreseeable sky happenings that happened irrespective of any mind's wishes. The seeming tactical placement could prove random over purposeful. Dr. Robert Kim from Stanford, tasked with simulating 3 Atlas's patterns via contest theory and tactical review, released a study probing the range of possibilities the blackout span could signify. His breakdown indicated the info conflict worth of the schedule held such weight that chance seemed improbable. A sophisticated mind orchestrating outreach to a less mature society would grasp the mental toll of stretches marked by doubt and obscurity, Kim stated in his tactical review. The solar blackout offers peak pull for mental sway, all while safeguarding mission secrecy for any ongoing efforts. Hobbyists in radio circles readied for thorough scanning over the blackout span. Though site-based tracking lay out of reach, wireless transmissions could remain catchable should 3 Atlas opt to broadcast while slipping sunward. Unique reception methods took shape to pick up the faintest traces that could hint at ongoing operations. Certain signal handlers noted odd ambient rhythms in the run-up to the solar alignment, implying that perhaps the entity known as 3 Atlas was experimenting with transmission protocols right before vanishing from sight. Those faint and unclear emissions defied conclusive interpretation, yet their occurrence hinted at preparations for a phase of covert yet dynamic maneuvers. The concluding sightings of 3 Atlas prior to its retreat behind the solar disk revealed ongoing architectural evolution and evident advancements in its capabilities. Whatever form re-emerged after the occlusion interval could differ profoundly from the version that initiated it, leveraging those concealed days to finalize any assembly or alteration endeavors underway. Hobbyist skywatchers secured the ultimate glimpses of 3 Atlas nearing the sun's outer atmosphere, recording a craft that had undergone a profound metamorphosis compared to its initial spotting several months back. Expanding appendages and sophisticated upgrades stood out sharply in detailed imagery, establishing a reference point for future assessments upon its return. Efforts to ready minds for the occlusion phase featured outreach initiatives detailing solar alignments and the constraints they placed on terrestrial monitoring. Research bodies endeavored to temper societal hopes and curb alarm by clarifying that the vanishing act was brief and foreseeable, despite the mystery shrouding its pursuits in that span. Yet, even exhaustive instruction failed to fully dispel the unease stemming from awareness that humanity's paramount artifact was set to endure 6 weeks of inscrutable actions shielded from earthly gaze. This solar eclipse of knowledge marked the initial instance of compelled blindness regarding occurrences potentially shaping the destiny of our kind. With October 29th drawing near and 3 at last on the verge of slipping behind the sun, the worldwide populace steeled itself for an era of ambiguity unprecedented in annals. Those ensuing 6 weeks would gauge humankind's capacity to sustain communal harmony and sound judgment amid the profoundest enigma. Chapter 7. Trajectory Truth. The Zero. 05 coincidence. The equations proved relentless, and Dr. James Chen recognized that figures spoke truth, regardless of narratives they wove that taxed mortal comprehension. Serving as chief path expert on the MIT squad, monitoring 3 at last from its debut, Chen had devoted endless sessions to cross-checking computations, leading to an outcome so unlikely it undermined notions of happenstance. 3 Atlas transcended mere transit across the heliosphere. It executed maneuvers akin to a meticulously calibrated scouting endeavor, nearing Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, with steering finesse surpassing all feats by terrestrial exploration outfits. The probabilistic breakdown struck with stark precision. Chen had computed the odds of an arbitrary extrasolar visitor aligning so closely with these trio of worlds as exhibited by 3 Atlas. The computations encompassed intricate path dynamics, tidal forces, and the immense volumetric expanse an intruder could traverse en route to the system. We're examining an aggregate likelihood of roughly a 0.05, Chen noted in the urgent secure session convened for top figures from NASA, the Department of Defense, and the National Science Foundation. For context, the odds favor getting hit by a bolt amid claiming 3 distinct jackpot prizes over witnessing alignments this exact by sheer fluke. The path scrutiny uncovered orchestration finesse implying deep familiarity with heliocentric principles. 3 IATALs was slated to skim Venus at 0.2 astronomical units come October 15th, offering ideal circumstances existed for conducting terrain charting and air composition examinations. On October 3rd, the rendezvous with Mars positioned the entity merely 0.19 astronomical units away, permitting in-depth mineralogical examinations without the threat of orbital entrapment. The planned Jupiter pass on March 16 the next year highlighted what might be the pinnacle of ingenuity in the full flight plan. At a proximity of 0.36 astronomical units, investigators could thoroughly probe the colossal planet's weather patterns, electromagnetic influences, and satellite arrays, all while leveraging the behemoth's immense pull to reshape the entity's departure course for the ideal speed when leaving the solar domain. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who served as NASA's head of flight orchestration and had guided path engineering for numerous automated probes, examined 3I Atlas's route with a mix of expert respect and mounting concern. Such orchestration surpasses anything our top experts can achieve, she conceded in NASA strategy sessions that eventually surfaced in probes by legislative overseers. The power thriftiness, the maximization of research yields, and the clever employment of orbital slingshots all point to a level of forethought implying either astonishing fortune or deliberate crafting. Accuracy extended far beyond the key world meetings. Closer scrutiny showed 3I Atlas's course offered prime viewing chances for the main belt of rocks, Kuiper belt entities, and assorted minor features across the Sun's realm. The route boosted knowledge gathering to the utmost while curbing fuel use and chances of being spotted. Yet, the incoming angle breakdown proved most unsettling. In contrast to usual visitors from deep space that tumble in from haphazard angles, 3I Atlas emerged from Sagittarius, aimed straight at the Milky Way's core, a star-packed zone that would render initial spotting nearly impossible. Dr. Maria Santos, specialist in celestial motions at the University of California, Berkeley, simulated sightline factors for entrance from varied origins. Her findings indicated 3I Atlas selected an entry route that shrank its spotting interval, yet extended scrutiny duration after identification. A traveler from Sagittarius stays practically unseen right up to Jupiter's path, Santos noted in her thorough site assessment. Such an entry line yields just several months for watching prior to sun alignment, fostering peak doubt regarding the entity's aims and potentials. The schedule breakdown carried similar disquiet. 3I Atlas timed its entry for a phase of subdued sun output, sidestepping the fierce rays and flux storms typical of peak solar phases. The entry matched beneficial cosmic positions that heightened the research worth of every junction. Chen's group simulated countless entry possibilities, varying onset moments, paths, and arcs, to pinpoint blends yielding prime scouting prospects. Their review verified that 3I Atlas adhered to essentially the flawless itinerary for probing earthly society, all while curtailing spotting and study periods. Steering exactness reached into finer points, exposing deeper ingenuity. The entity's spin cycle was deliberately tuned to enhance photovoltaic output, assuming solar reliance, whereas its frame alignment bolstered balance under gravity during intense speed shifts. Dr. Robert Kim from Stanford, who dissected 3I Atlas via contest theory and tactic frameworks, issued a study probing the examiners in the field of espionage and data collection, reframed the object's course as a model of covert surveillance tactics. Their evaluation indicated that this route exhibited vigilance in protecting operations, far surpassing typical armed forces' scouting endeavors. In his tactical review, Kim noted how the flight path embodied traits of a meticulously orchestrated spying endeavor. Factors such as the entry direction, schedule, sequence of planetary flybys, and alignment with solar events worked together to enhance data acquisition and reduce the chances of alerting the subject or allowing quick reactions. The consequences for humanity's protection ran deep. Should 3I Atlas embody adversarial spying, its route created ideal setups for evaluating earthly tech prowess without being spotted until defenses proved useless. This entity might finish its scouting task and slip away past mortal grasp prior to any viable defenses being crafted or positioned. Spy networks across the globe now viewed the route breakdown as a danger evaluation, not mere scholarly interest. The exact steering revealed skills well beyond current human engineering, implying that 3I Atlas's craters held thorough grasp of solar neighborhood physics and earthly orbital monitoring systems. Hobby stargazers performed their separate checks on the route math, drawing from open-access path records to back the expert findings. Various separate probes reinforced the view that 3I Atlas pursued a path of unattainable accuracy across the sun's domain. Enthusiast skywatchers, including Marcus Rodriguez, unwittingly joined a worldwide effort in dissecting intel. "No longer are we merely following a cosmic body," Rodriguez shared in a recent viral clip among his growing audience. "Instead, we are recording signs of strategy and cognition functioning at levels beyond our prior experience." The root breakdown further uncovered an element that disturbed those probing the entity's actions. Far from simply practical, the root refinement carried grace. Slingshot effects from gravity, rhythm of events, and power handling all pointed to a refined taste for path artistry, hinting at a mind steeped in the principles of heavenly motion. At the Space Telescope Science Institute, Dr. Jennifer Walsh caught herself likening 3I Atlas's route to symphonic scores, highlighting the resonant ties among varied path components and the clever arrangement of intricate pull forces to yield peak results through least exertion. "This route holds a creative essence surpassing basic utility," Walsh remarked in a talk veering toward deeper musings on the entity. "We witness steering transformed into creative expression, showcasing cognition that discovers elegance in the equations governing heavenly paths." Such creative lens sparked uneasy inquiries into the essence of the cognition steering 3I Atlas. A being able to savor the beauty in path physics amid what seemed deliberate scouting signaled a refinement level upending mortal notions on how cognition, tools, and awareness intertwine. Faith groups around the world wrestled with the doctrinal fallout from cognition blending tech dominance and artistic flair. Certain guides saw the graceful route as proof of sacred guidance, whereas others fretted over the soul-level effects of facing cognition, potentially outstripping human insight across every realm. The route breakdown additionally yielded clues regarding 3I Atlas's likely origin, and tracing the probe's route across interstellar voids pointed to a voyage spanning perhaps millions of years, hinting at either extraordinary endurance or systems engineered to function over epochs rivaling Earth's own history. At MIT, Dr. Lisa Park computed the power needs for sustaining such a prolonged operational endeavor. Her findings indicated that 3I Atlas likely featured regenerative mechanisms verging on eternal life, or power supplies capable of running without outside fuel for virtually endless spans. Such designs view timelines stretching across millions of years as standard operational frameworks, Park noted in her report. This points to a level of advancement nearing the boundaries of known physics. The extended multi-million-year travel arc sparked uneasy inquiries into the resolve and tenacity of 3I Atlas's designers. A mind prepared to execute scouting operations over such vast intervals embodied foresight that overshadowed all human strategic outlooks. Probing the motives and aims of extraterrestrial beings carried grave weight. Around the globe, defense experts began crafting risk assessments for entities functioning on million-year cycles, armed with tech surpassing ours by exponential degrees. Conventional ideas of restraint and protection lost all relevance against such enormous gaps in prowess and long-term resolve. Examination of the flight's accuracy further exposed that 3 Atlas held intimate awareness of our orbital monitoring strengths and weaknesses. Its entry route took advantage of voids in global sensor arrays, synchronizing the touchdown to curtail chances for scrutiny. This implied that 3IA Atlas's builders had previously scouted our tech landscape prior to dispatching their primary expedition. The fallout for data protection and tactical unpredictability ran deep, suggesting our species could have faced surveillance for periods far exceeding prior estimates. Hobbyists tuning into radio frequencies while tracking 3 Atlas picked up broadcast rhythms aligning with its nearing of various world bodies. These emissions implied the device was diligently acquiring and relaying information during its exacting survey tasks. Links among path accuracy and signaling strength bolstered the view that 3 Atlas pursued methodical espionage over mere wandering. It seemed to adhere to a preset regimen for information harvest, devised beforehand with striking meticulousness. With October advancing and 3 Atlas nearing its meticulously orchestrated brushes with Venus and Mars, path breakdowns kept yielding signs of cognition guided by tenets that defied our grasp of foresight, stamina, and engineering prowess. The Irostro E5 coincidence grew utterly untenable as mere luck, compelling humankind to face the truth of deliberate scrutiny from a mind whose powers and purposes stayed utterly mysterious, even after prolonged scrutiny and dissection. Chapter 8. Dark Forest Theory. Academic war erupts. Scholars had long celebrated their commitment to logical exchange and fact-driven arguments, yet the Three Atlas affair strained those ideals in unforeseen manners. In the opening days of October 2025, an initial scholarly clash over a peculiar celestial body had morphed into near-scholarly combat, imperiling livelihoods, grants, and core worldviews teetered on the edge of collapse. At the heart of a divisive uproar tearing the astronomy field into bitter camps was Dr. Christopher Hayes, esteemed head of the International Astronomical Union's Commission on Interstellar Objects. Researchers on one flank maintained that 3I amounted to ordinary occurrences interpretable via standard physical and chemical principles. In opposition, an expanding alliance of experts contended that the signs clearly indicated artificial origins and possible aggressive motives. The clash ignited from the release of multiple studies delving into the dark forest hypothesis in relation to 3I Atlas. This idea, brought to prominence by Chinese science fiction writer Liu Jixin, proposed that sophisticated societies across the cosmos could opt for quietude and concealment to evade notice from dangerous minds. When linked to 3I at last, it sketched a chilling vision of initial encounters as perils instead of prospects. Dr. Adam Hybard, affiliated with the Initiative for Interstellar Studies in London, had collaborated on one of the most contentious articles examining the dark forest ramifications of 3I at last's movements. Teaming with Adam Kra and Avibe, Hibbert scrutinized the entity's path and schedule through the lens of tactical scouting over mere inquiry. According to the dark forest hypothesis, any entity equipped for star-spanning journeys would near unfamiliar societies with utmost wariness and latent aggression. In the article, Hibbert asserted that this would shatter the astronomy realm. The patterns displayed by 3I align with scouting operations that herald either amicable outreach or proactive neutralization of risks. The document detailed possibilities that haunted security experts. Should 3I Atlas signify cutting-edge scouting from a society regarding other minds as mortal dangers, humankind could confront scrutiny for destruction over dialogue. The entity's methodical examination of celestial forms and evident tech prowess might signal hazard evaluation over inquisitive probing. The scholarly backlash arrived fast and fierce. Prominent stargazers from top organizations released unified declarations denouncing what they deemed reckless conjecture liable to incite societal alarm over routine events. The rebuke targeted not only the findings, but also the scholar's choice to disseminate such conjectural work absent irrefutable validation. Dr. Margaret Thompson, NASA's principal authority on minor solar system objects, emerged as the visible emblem of official resistance to dark forest ideas. During a broadcast press event aired across key media outlets, she declared that the notion of 3I Atlas embodying adversarial extraterrestrial smarts lacked backing from existing data. Such conjecture erodes trust in rigorous science and prudent inquiry. Yet, Thompson's composed rebuttal lost ground amid disclosed memos, exposing that NASA had discreetly started crafting backup measures for handling conceivable extraterrestrial interactions. Confidential records indicated the organization regarded dark forest scenarios with sufficient gravity to initiate basic preparations for protective measures. The disclosure sparked fresh turmoil, with scholars probing why official figures openly rejected notions they covertly probed. Dr. Elena Vasquez, whose pioneering path study initially hinted at synthetic control, now navigated clashing demands to either back or pull away from ever more sensational propositions. In examining the objectives of the 3I Atlas, Vasquez noted in a scarce public address that the gathered information points to cleverness, though cleverness alone hardly guarantees aggression. It's essential to separate findings rooted in proof from imaginative guesses, particularly since each can lead to notions that upend our views on the cosmos. Scholars clashed not merely over how to read the facts, but over core issues of duty in science and sharing insights with the wider world. Early career investigators, especially those still building their reputations, generally favored frank exchanges on every option, even dire ones involving confrontation. Established experts, often tied to organizational roles, leaned toward restrained methods that highlighted doubts instead of pinpointing dangers. At Caltech, Dr. Sarah Kim occupied a balanced stance that pleased no faction fully. Her review recognized the 3I Atlas's tech prowess, surpassing all earthly feats, yet insisted that aggressive aims represented just one among numerous reasons for its actions. "We face a form of intellect guided by rules alien to us," Kim penned, seeking to mend the widening rift in scholarly circles. Projecting earthly drives such as aggression or kindness onto this intellect could prove entirely misguided. Perhaps we're encountering thought processes that render our notions of ally and foe irrelevant. Kim's reflective stance drew backing from specialists beyond core stargazing disciplines. Experts in human cultures, mental processes, and deep thinking started weighing in on the 3I controversy, offering angles that questioned long-held ideas among skywatchers about intellect, exchange, and drives. With deep roots in both stargazing and mind studies, Dr. Maria Santos of UC Berkeley released an essay exploring the 3I lens on encounter languages and alien mind science. She proposed that efforts by people to decode extraterrestrial drives were likely set for defeat absent a far stronger grasp of how unfamiliar intellects function. Efforts persist to probe intellects shaped by utterly alien environments, possibly driven by reasoning structures beyond our reach, Santos observed in her cross-field study. The dark forest hypothesis presumes extraterrestrial intellects would strategize risks and gains much like human war tactics. Such a premise could well be utterly wrong. This cross-field viewpoint injected fresh layers into the scholarly strife, yet offered scant more insight into the three lasses' true aims. Should human ways of thinking fall short for grasping alien intellect, then views of conflict or harmony alike could ring hollow. Faith leaders entered the fray among thinkers, adding sacred angles that muddled paths to agreement on the 3I Atlas's import. Certain spiritual figures viewed the entity as proof of heavenly meddling, whereas others regarded it as a trial of people's belief and insight amid vast unknowns. The Vatican's Pontifical Academy of Sciences released a measured declaration, conceding the cosmos could harbor intellects surpassing human ken, all while stressing that godly power outstrips any tech such intellects command. Various faith groups grappled to craft sacred structures fit for handling possible encounters with non-terrestrial intellect. The scholarly skirmishes spilled past academic publications into platforms like Twitter, turned into arenas where scientists had to shield not only their research findings, but also their expertise and underlying drives from scrutiny. Fierce online clashes broke out among advocates of rival hypotheses, escalating to the point that campus leaders stepped in with declarations on proper behavior in professional circles. Observers outside academia watched these scholarly skirmishes with rapt attention and mounting unease. The way these sites boosted the most intense arguments often framed expert disputes as proof that specialists grasped the matter no more than everyday people did. Such broadening of the conversation eroded trust in established bodies, even as it heightened widespread worry over 3I Atlas. Hobby stargazers and volunteer experts picked factions in this intellectual conflict, backing those urging restraint or aligning with voices pushing for unrestricted exploration of every option, even aggressive ones. Web communities focused on 3I Atlas evolved into hotbeds, blending rigorous breakdowns with deeper musings on humankind's stance amid stellar unknowns. Ideas like the dark forest hypothesis picked up fresh legitimacy as defense experts started releasing their evaluations of 3I Atlas in terms of possible dangers to safety. Though these reports steered clear of firm judgments, they recognized the entity's shown powers as hazards demanding thorough backup strategies. Colonel Janet Rodriguez, an expert in budding tech risks at the Department of Defense, shared a redacted review viewing 3I Atlas as a spying tool irrespective of its true aims. She emphasized functions over intents, claiming the split held no weight for protective strategies. No matter if 3I Atlas signals benign inquiry or aggressive scouting, its proven tech prowess outstrips our shields by vast degrees, Rodriguez noted in her defense paper. Wise safeguard measures demand readiness for cases where those powers could turn against our kind. This defense angle injected fresh intensity into the scholarly exchanges, underscoring the real-world stakes of varied conceptual models. Should 3 at last pose a real danger, then clashes among thinkers over its essence transcended mere intellectual pursuit. They touched on the very endurance of our species. Spy networks across the globe started enlisting scholarly minds for secret evaluations, forming a shadow web of inquiry beyond standard critique channels. Such isolation of studies deepened rifts in the learned world and shrank the details open to general review. Pulling experts into secure initiatives sparked moral quandaries for those holding knowledge barred from peers or wider audiences. Certain researchers turned down involvement in hidden probes, valuing their role in transparent exchanges above all. Still, many saw a duty to lend their skills to safeguard causes, come what may for their scholarly leeway. Dr. Robert Kim from Stanford grappled with clashing duties after an offer to join a secure probe into 3I Atlas's tactical effects. By rejecting it, yet keeping up public writings on the item's traits, he drew fire from official forces and popular gaze alike. Science functions best when information flows freely and conclusions can be challenged through open debate. In a contentious interview, Kim voiced sharp disapproval of the growing practice to label research on 3I Atlas as classified. The instant we conceal our findings under layers of secrecy for protection, we forfeit the capacity to separate solid, evidence-backed judgments from mere guesses fueled by apprehension. Kim's stance garnered backing from fellow scientists anxious over the weaponization of 3 Atlas research. Yet it also sparked backlash from those who contended that certain elements of the matter were far too delicate for open airing. This clash exposed core conflicts, pitting transparency in science against worries over national defense, conflicts with no straightforward fixes. The scholarly battle surrounding interpretations of 3 Atlas mirrored broader philosophical rifts concerning science's role in grappling with events that upended long-held paradigms. Standard approaches in science demanded thorough checking and scrutiny by peers prior to embracing groundbreaking outcomes. Yet 3 Atlas was shifting at a pace that outstripped the usual schedules for examination. Certain experts pushed for faster rollout and evaluation methods to match the entity's evolving traits, whereas others held firm that upholding strict criteria outweighed any rush. The pull between meticulous care and pressing need added further strain to the research circles. The dark forest hypothesis had reshaped scholarly talks on 3 Atlas, turning it from mere intrigue into a profound evaluation carrying weight for humankind's destiny. If the entity signaled promise or peril stayed ambiguous, but the fervor of the intellectual fray underscored the scale of the potential confrontation for our species. As October advanced and 3 Atlas drew nearer to solar conjunction, scholars stayed split amid rival views of data that all conceded was without precedent in astronomical annals. The clash of perspectives would persist no matter what the entity might disclose regarding its authentic essence and aims. Chapter 9. Mars Flyby Intel. October 3rd. Revelations. October 3, 2025, would stand as the inaugural instance in humankind's record when probes from various countries would jointly scrutinize an extraterrestrial intruder, seemingly performing methodical scouting of a neighboring world. With 3 Atlas nearing Mars at its planned separation of 19 astronomical units, a groundbreaking global team of automated sentinels stood ready to record any disclosures the enigmatic entity might offer on its actual prowess and purposes. Dr. Sarah Chen, who oversaw operations for the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, ended up orchestrating the most intricate multi-probe watching effort ever mounted. We have 6 ongoing missions orbiting Mars, 2 ground-based rovers, and telescopes in deep space, all zeroed in on one target during a 12-hour viewing slot, she noted in the briefing ahead of the pass, joined by delegates from NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, and the China National Space Administration. This gives us our prime chance to grasp 3IA Atlas's tech prowess as it carries out active planetary scouting. The European Space Agency's Mars Express orbiter had been maneuvered expressly to optimize its vantage points amid the encounter. The probe's advanced stereo imaging system and array of spectrometers stood set to gather intricate visuals and material insights on 3I Atlas's baffling exterior features. Dr. Angela Martinez, lead investigator for the mission, had logged 18-hour shifts crafting viewing protocols that promised unrivaled near-view intel on the entity's tech setup. Mars Express, Will Martinez detailed during a global technical session distributed to observatories everywhere how the setup could deliver pixel clarity around 30 kilometers wide on the surface of 3I Atlas. Such precision enables distinguishing separate building blocks of the structure and observing their functions as it nears the planet. Should the entity perform deliberate scouting, capturing distinct actions and tech indicators becomes feasible. Equipped with an advanced color and stereo surface imaging setup, the XMR's trace gas orbiter aimed to record 3D visuals of the item's shifting framework designs. Meanwhile, the Nomad spectrometer on the craft stood ready to examine potential air exchanges or releases happening while 3 Atlas traversed Mars's sparse magnetosphere. Among all tools for the encounter, NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter stood out as the premier viewing asset. Its high-rise camera, typically employed for extremely detailed scans of Mars's terrain, got adjusted to follow 3I Atlas at peak proximity. Those images promised the sharpest glimpses yet into the entity's tech apparatus. At the University of Arizona, Dr. James Wilson, who oversees high-rise operations, determined the optics could discern elements down to 3 men in size on 3I Atlas's exterior right at the nearest pass. Individual parts of this object's tech will come into view for us, Wilson remarked in the last readiness meeting. Should artificial builds, machine setups, or outer alterations exist, High-Rise will record them with unmatched sharpness. The Mars pass timing sparked rare unity among space organizations long accustomed to hoarding their findings tightly. Protocols for instant data exchange ensured every party gained swift entry to findings, no matter the originating probe. The sheer scale of the 3I Atlas enigma compelled longtime rivals to collaborate in manners unthinkable in past exploration eras. For the pass viewing, Russia drew on its ongoing Mars efforts plus Earth-fixed telescopes aimed at the occurrence. Dr. Dmitry Falov, head of the Institute for Space Research, pledged Russian resources for non-stop monitoring to supplement Western orbital efforts. Humanity faces its grandest celestial happening here, Volkov declared in an uncommon media talk mere days prior to the pass. Global teamwork goes beyond preference. It's vital for grasping our sights. No one country holds enough means to grasp 3I Atlas's full ramifications. China's Tianwen-1 effort, featuring an orbital craft and the Zhurong rover grounded on Mars, supplied extra viewing options that patched holes in Western arrays. The Chinese Space Agency's unusual openness about viewing strategies and data exchange pledges underscored the event's exceptional stakes. Across the globe, hobbyist stargazers geared up for personal viewing trials amid the Mars pass. Admittedly, the vast spans would hinder spotting fine points that probe operations could snag. Still, the unified hobbyist viewing grid, put together by Marcus Rodriguez and Associates, offered standalone confirmation of key occurrences and acted as a reserve data stream should glitches hit the formal operations. Flyby science groundwork exposed just how profoundly 3IATAL's Earth's global space monitoring efforts now centered solely on this enigmatic entity. Systems designed for everyday satellite guidance and near-Earth object detection had been repurposed entirely to aid in scrutinizing the red planet. Telescopes sensitive to radio waves scattered across the globe stood ready to capture whatever broadcasts 3IE Atlas could send as it neared the world. At the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, Dr. Frank Wilson devised detection procedures to scan every frequency range that ground stations could reach for any energy bursts. Should 3IE Atlas send messages toward our planet or an unseen audience as it closed in on Mars, our equipment will pick them up and log them all, Wilson noted at the International Symposium uniting experts from 6 nations. Hopes pinned on the Mars Passover mixed pure research with calculated tactics. Should 3 Atlas be methodically surveying inner solar realms, how it acted near the planet could unveil key details on its information-gathering techniques and engineering prowess. Defense experts crafted evaluation models to judge the probe's survey routes and routines through the lens of espionage efficiency. Beyond that, the event promised to probe multiple hypotheses regarding 3I Atlas's aims and beginnings. In a scenario of benign curiosity, the approach to Mars would probably feature thorough yet gentle examination, akin to our own probes of distant orbs. Conversely, if darker motives lurked, the close pass might expose survey styles, focus areas for data, or displays of power hinting at aggressive spying. From MIT, Dr. Lisa Park created interpretive guidelines to decode 3I Atlas's maneuvers over Mars, independent of whatever gear it wielded. Her approach zeroed in on activity sequences, energy use, and timing as clues to deeper goals and tactical mindset. By noting how 3 Atlas divides its focus and schedule amid the Mars rendezvous, we gain windows into its core drives and choice-making, Park detailed in her rundown before the event. Even without grasping the exact tools at play, we discern the calculated moves shining through its conduct. Far beyond mere data gathering, the Mars traversal marked humankind's initial chance to examine extraterrestrial smarts in the midst of what seemed deliberate probing. Seeing 3I Atlas inspect a fellow sphere would compel watchers here to face how exposed their home truly stood to such inspection. Faith groups across the planet arranged vigils and meditative sessions aligned with the Mars moment. Numerous figures viewed it as a pivotal juncture in the cosmos, demanding inner readiness and heavenly insight. Witnessing off-world craft probe distant realms would surely spark debates on where people fit amid stars, harboring minds vastly outpacing ours. News outlets geared up massively, with big broadcasters set for non-stop reporting on the happening and what followed right after. Viewer fascination hit peaks akin to elections or catastrophes, underscoring broad awareness that the Mars brush might yield clear truths on 3 Atlas's essence and purposes. Online networks boosted their infrastructure to manage the influx anticipated as eyes turned to the Passover. Early projections indicated billions globally would tune in. Millions tuned in globally via digital streams, positioning this as possibly the most viewed scientific spectacle ever recorded in history. Coordinating observations from numerous probes over immense expanses demanded extensive months of meticulous preparation and remarkable cross-border collaboration. Experts in trajectory guidance determined exact alignment needs for every detection unit, as signal technicians set up instant information exchange systems to enable worldwide synchronization of the viewing effort. Contingency measures were crafted to handle device malfunctions, signal disruptions, or sudden shifts in 3 Atlas's actions amid the pass-by. Given the critical value of this viewing window, duplicate mechanisms and backup methods were arranged across all elements of the surveillance operation. This pass near Mars offered the initial chance to assess if 3 Atlas exhibited knowledge of humanity's detection tools. Should the entity alter its conduct upon detection by several probes, it would validate theories of advanced cognition and environmental perception, surpassing basic self-directed functions. At Stanford, Dr. Robert Kim developed evaluation methods tailored to identify evidence that 3I at last was tracking human endeavors amid its scouting task. Should this entity prove as clever as its actions imply, it would recognize our probes and possibly adapt its operations in kind, Kim noted in the strategy meeting for the viewing. That level of perception would yield vital understandings of its mental faculties and tactical mindset. The build-up to the Mars pass-by generated widespread excitement and unease, reaching well outside expert circles. Leaders in governments around the world adjusted their agendas to follow the occurrence and its prompt consequences. defense leaders elevated watch systems to high readiness levels should 3 Atlas display features endangering ground installations on Earth. With October 3rd drawing near and 3I at last gearing up for its nearest brush with Mars, people everywhere readied themselves for disclosures that could reshape views on intellect, machinery, and positioning within the vast cosmos. The coming 12 hours promised the sharpest glimpse so far into extraterrestrial devices functioning live, perhaps resolving long-standing riddles that have stirred human curiosity across ages, yet sure to spark fresh enigmas, testing core beliefs about existence and mind across the stars. Chapter 10. The Hubble Deception. Anti-tail anomalies. For 6 straight hours, Dr. Jennifer Walsh scrutinized the Hubble Space Telescope photographs before conceding that the visuals defied core tenets of comet dynamics acquired over her professional life. Snapped on July 21, 2025, with 3Y Atlas yet 207 million miles distant from our planet, the shots revealed an impossibility under standard comet mechanics. The particle stream extended backward improperly. Serving as lead visual expert at the Space Telescope Science Institute, Walsh had reviewed countless comet visuals in her tenure. She grasped the mechanics by which sunlight's push and pull of gravity combine to shape the signature extensions rendering comets prime beauties of our star system. Yet, 3 at last displayed actions breaching these solid rules, hinting at either groundbreaking physical laws or intentional tech interference. Traditional cometry tails form when solar radiation pushes dust and gas in the opposite direction from the core, pointing away from the solar body. During a rushed crisis meeting called right after her findings surfaced, Walsh detailed the details. The emissions from 3I outlays display an anti-tail formation, seemingly aimed at the sun instead of repelling from it. Such an arrangement defies both aerodynamic principles and gravitational norms in any ordinary scenario. Images from Hubble revealed a dust envelope shaped like a droplet emerging from 3I's solid nucleus. Yet the wider portion of that droplet faced the sun, with the tapered section lagging in the wake of the object's path. This setup implied that substances were being deliberately gathered or directed, not just released through typical vaporization. The consequences were profound. Should 3I Atlas be intentionally directing its dust outflows to form deliberate patterns, it would signify tech capable of altering core physical laws at magnitudes beyond any human tech feats. Holding an anti-tail form steady against the push of solar radiation would demand instant force regulation setups functioning with extraordinary complexity. At NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, Dr. Sarah Mitchell was assigned to offer non-artificial origins for the anti-tail effect without suggesting intelligent design. After months of deep simulation work, her review determined that no familiar natural dynamic could justify the dust setup seen. Every conceivable organic method capable of generating anti-tail forms has been thoroughly scrutinized, Mitchell stated in her secure document, which eventually reached congressional probes via leaks. Interactions with solar wind, influences from magnetic fields, odd gravitational shifts, and unusual vaporization methods all fell short in rationalizing Hubble's captured evidence. Initially, the anti-tail find was labeled restricted data as officials worked on suitable ways to inform the public. Yet, that secrecy move rebounded harshly when hobbyist stargazers with far simpler scopes started noting comparable sights, rendering official silencing efforts pointless. From his setup in Chile, amateur observer Carlos Mendez, who had been cross-checking expert data through his personal station, snapped his version of the anti-tail using gear cheaper than a high-end car. Shared on the web prior to any official lockdown plans, his shots spread like wildfire online, pulling in more than 20 million hits in the opening 7 days. Comets have been my photo subject for a decade and a half, Mendes noted in the video notes tied to those shots on YouTube. Normal tail patterns are familiar to me. This defies natural norms. What we're seeing is deliberate handling of outflow materials to shape setups that violate physical laws. The backyard validation of Hubble's anti-tail sights sparked a major PR crisis for cosmic agencies trying to control details on 3 through the Atlas's odd traits. With astronomy now open to all via everyday tools, efforts by officials to hide strange discoveries grew ever more pointless, especially as non-pros matched pro outcomes with off-the-shelf devices. Worldwide experts zeroed in on the anti-tail event, grappling with the puzzle of how 3I at last sustained those defying dust setups. Models on computers showed that keeping an anti-tail intact needed ongoing power use and immediate force oversight at degrees hinting at advanced tech frameworks. Dr. A. detailed examination by Robert Kim from Stanford delved into the power demands needed for engineered tail regulation, illustrating a form of engineering that surpassed comprehension by humans. Through his computations, it emerged that 3I Atlas consumed power on par with modest nuclear power plants just to sustain its particulate arrangement amid opposing environmental pressures. The anti-tail structure embodied deliberate modification of the surrounding cosmic domain. In his expert evaluation, Kim noted, "Sustaining such an arrangement demands systems capable of offsetting solar radiation pressure, gravitational pulls, and electromagnetic forces all at once, all while upholding durability over vast expanses spanning millions of cubic kilometers in the void." These power-handling concerns grew especially alarming alongside earlier sightings of 3 Atlas's apparently boundless engineering prowess. Should the entity routinely deploy reactor-scale power merely for decorative particulate patterns, one could only wonder at its potential when unleashing its complete arsenal of innovations. Faith-based groups across the globe grappled with assigning spiritual meaning to a sentience that seemed to channel creativity via interstellar particle artistry. Certain figures viewed the anti-tail formation as a sign of sacred guidance channeled via extraterrestrial cognition, whereas others fretted over the soul-deep consequences of facing entities able to mold substances and forces to suit visual whims. The Vatican's Pontifical Academy of Sciences released a measured declaration recognizing that godly ingenuity could emerge via minds eclipsing human grasp, yet underscoring that ecclesiastical dominion outranked any feats of invention. Various faith institutions began crafting fresh doctrinal models to grapple with a consciousness wielding near-deific sway over elemental powers. Revelations about the anti-tail also exposed unsettling aspects of how officials and orbital programs had managed disclosures on 3I Atlas. Early categorizations of Hubble imagery indicated that overseers prioritized crowd responses and factual precision, prompting inquiries into potentially withheld or postponed data from other sightings. Disclosed exchanges among NASA leaders uncovered intense in-house arguments over the volume of details to release publicly about 3I Atlas's peculiar traits. A few executives pushed for utter openness, but counterparts cautioned that exposing the object's full inventive scope could spark societal turmoil or market upheavals. Dr. Elena Vasquez, whose pioneering path study initially hinted at deliberate control, now navigated tensions between backing official data controls and championing unfiltered scholarly candor. As primary creator of the core 3-2 Atlas studies, she became central to discussions on scholarly duties and outreach to the public. Researchers must disseminate discoveries to society at large, yet we bear duties to weigh the fallout from revelations that could incite broad unease, Vasquez remarked in one of her seldom-seen addresses. This anti-tail occurrence embodies innovation so sophisticated that grasping its ramifications might lie beyond general cognition. Over the span of monitoring, the anti-tail formation kept transforming, gaining layers of intricacy and evident purpose that implied it transcended mere visual flair. Spectroscopic scans showed that varied sections of the particulate. The arrangement featured diverse substances, pointing to deliberate arrangement instead of haphazard release. An examination by Dr. Maria Santos from UC Berkeley proposed that the anti-tail formation could signify a means of signaling or data preservation, distinct from mere creative display. Her findings revealed that the particulate formations held numerical connections and spatial designs, seemingly designed to hold intricate details. The anti-tail setup reveals patterns of order that imply substantive messaging over arbitrary creative layout. In her debated study, Santos noted, We may be observing a form of communication that uses cosmic dust as a medium for transmitting complex data across interstellar distances. This view of encoded messaging deepened the enigma surrounding the anti-tail event, while prompting uneasy inquiries into our capacity to grasp extraterrestrial signaling techniques. Should 3i Atlas be trying to convey ideas via particulate control, earthly knowledge misses the essential paradigms needed to decode such signals. Hobbyists in radio scanning for 3i Atlas picked up radio wave bursts that align with shifts in the anti-tail layout. These bursts indicate the entity employs assorted signaling tactics at once, perhaps reaching out to varied audiences through diverse tech means. The link between anti-tail alterations and radio bursts bolsters views that 3i Atlas is purposefully shaping its surroundings for aims exceeding basic travel or data gathering. The entity seems engaged in elaborate activities fulfilling several roles concurrently. The anti-tail occurrence has also offered glimpses into 3i Atlas's grasp of human watching tools. As ground-based scopes gain sharper focus, the formation grows more intricate and eye-catching, hinting that the entity tailors its visuals to match advancing spying gear. Such adaptation to our tools sparks troubling thoughts on how extended 3i Atlas could have tracked human tech progress. Should the entity tweak its actions according to our viewing skills, it likely scrutinized our world's inventions well prior to its formal spotting. Spy networks globally now sift through creative displays as viable intel sources, a twist beyond any prior drills. The anti-tail layout draws scrutiny from codebreakers, defense experts, and mind specialists seeking to pull out tactical details from what looks like stellar creativity. The Defense Intelligence Agency has discreetly formed a unit focused on decoding the anti-tail event through lenses of data conflict and mind games. Their secret review proposed that 3i at last might wield visual tricks to flaunt tech dominance, even as it probes human decoding skills. Colonel Sarah Martinez, leading the Armed Forces 3i Atlas review group, ended up drafting briefs that echoed gallery reviews more than risk breakdowns. The anti-tail layout shows exact mastery of substances and forces on levels dwarfing our shields by vast multiples, she stated in her secure report. Be it menace, signaling, or plain creative flair, the core tech effects remain the same in terms of safety concerns. The armed forces' take on the anti-tail as a possible mind war tactic heightens the push to unravel its intent and significance. Should 3i Atlas intentionally seek to shape human views and actions via showcases of superior tech prowess, the entity would embody an assault for which earthly safeguards stood utterly ill-equipped. At MIT, Dr. Lisa Park had delved into the anti-tail structure via an engineering lens, striving to dissect the tech essentials needed for fabricating and sustaining such implausible setups. Her examination sketched out prowess nearing the tweaking of core physical laws. Fabricating an anti-tail structure demands instant handling of electromagnetic forces, gravity effects, and subatomic exchanges over spatial expanses spanning millions of cubic kilometers. In her engineering report, Park noted, the computational requirements alone suggest information processing capabilities that exceed human technology by factors we cannot accurately calculate. Such computational scrutiny sparked further inquiries into 3i Atlas's data handling framework. Should the entity juggle the instant computations vital for anti-tail upkeep alongside scouting, signaling, and steering tasks, its processing might surpass human limits by vast cosmic multiples. Hobbyists in astronomy started their independent probes of the anti-tail structure, leveraging shared online grids to monitor shifts and motifs overlooked by formal bodies. The broadening access to 3i Atlas studies had spawned an international volunteer inquiry initiative, yielding discoveries that matched or outdid those from sanctioned probes. Marcus Rodriguez, with his Arizona Observatory now serving as a hub for volunteer studies, released sequenced images depicting the anti-tail structure morphing live. His recordings exposed how the dust array kept reshaping, upholding exact spatial harmonies amid the turbulent solar dynamics. We're witnessing deliberate sculpting of the void around us, Rodriguez detailed in his breakdown clips, which routinely drew millions of watchers. This goes beyond mere particle wrangling. It's mastery over surroundings on a level that renders our planetary reshaping endeavors mere playtime in the dirt. The instant quality of those anti-tail tweaks furnished more proof that 3i Atlas held reactive prowess well beyond earthly tech setups. The entity displayed machine intellect capable of absorbing ambient shifts and refining its functions swifter than human tools could register the alterations. Thinkers in philosophy across the globe started wrestling with the fallout from intellects that treated stellar debris as a canvas for creation. The anti-tail structure embodied an outlet functioning across vast cosmic and temporal realms that overshadowed human creative legacies, compelling a fresh look at core notions of invention, cognition, and sensory delight. Dr. Amanda Foster, an Oxford University expert in science philosophy focused on extraterrestrial minds, issued an essay probing the anti-tail event through the lens of xenoaesthetics. Her review indicated that efforts by humans to decode foreign creations could prove inherently hopeless, absent deeper grasp of how alien psyches might perceive allure and significance. We face creative output guided by beauty codes beyond our reach, Foster penned in her thoughtful review. The anti-tail structure could embody allure varieties needing alternate awareness forms for true grasp. Our decoding tries might prove as pointless as hoping a canine would appraise human verse. The philosophical. This viewpoint infused a fresh sense of modesty into researchers' endeavors to grasp the 3i Atlas while underscoring the enormous voids in people's grasp of intellect, awareness, and the discernment of beauty. Should the anti-ale embody extraterrestrial creativity, then humankind could be beholding works of genius that their minds simply could not fathom. The anti-tail framework had emerged as a central hub for speculative narratives, blending valid research worries with outlandish guesses regarding extraterrestrial motives and official concealments. Online networks grappled with moderating conversations that intertwined precise engineering breakdowns with escalating tales of mental domination, reality-warping shifts, and interstellar battles. The surge in such speculative narratives gained momentum from the anti-tail event's genuine breach of established physical rules, evoking an aura of the uncanny. As credible studies verified occurrences defying possibility, the boundary separating factual scrutiny from fanciful conjecture grew ever harder for everyday observers to discern. Learning centers were crafting updated lesson plans to guide learners through the 3 Atlas occurrence, all while fostering analytical rigor amid details that upended core beliefs about existence. The anti-tail framework served as a prime example in evaluating irregular findings without forsaking rigorous inquiry methods. Dr. Robert Chen from Caltech focused on the power needs for sustaining the anti-tail, released subsequent findings probing the heat dynamics of the particle reshaping. His review indicated that 3i Atlas somehow tapped into power reserves functioning beyond standard physical frameworks. The anti-tail framework embodies a defiance of heat balance rules that ought to render its persistence unfeasible, Chen noted in his evolving reflective examination. Our grasp of power preservation stands either profoundly lacking or we confront devices governed by undiscovered natural regulations. Such heat-based infractions from the anti-tail framework bolstered the expanding catalog of manners in which 3 Atlas tested humanity's perception of universal order. This entity displayed functions that appeared to dismiss power equilibrium, momentum equilibrium, alongside further tenets anchoring established physical science. Healthcare experts started noting rises in unease and melancholy among those intently tracking the 3 Atlas progress. The anti-tail event especially provoked deep personal upheavals, as individuals wrestled with proof that their view of existence fell woefully short. Support circles for mental well-being tied to 3IA Atlas worries had sprung up in key urban areas across the globe, offering guidance to those reeling from the ramifications of verified extraterrestrial devices. The anti-tail framework proved especially provocative for individuals overwhelmed by the blend of allure and infeasibility on a mental level. The visual allure of the anti-tail framework had sparked creative circles globally to pursue earthly renditions of stellar construction. Modelers, visual creators, and virtual designers were producing pieces aiming to evoke the sight and sentiment of encountering unattainable splendor forged via engineering surpassing mortal insight. Certain creative takes zeroed in on the exact shapes of the anti-tail framework, whereas others highlighted the effective jolt of beholding intellect wielding stellar powers for visual ends. This creative backlash mirrored humankind's bid to assimilate encounters for which their developmental past offered no readiness. What was once perceived as a mere glitch in the Hubble observations had escalated into a profound assault on humankind's grasp of intellect, innovation, aesthetics, and the very fabric of existence. That peculiar anti-tail configuration stood as proof that the three-eye atlas functioned under rules far beyond any paradigm our society had ever devised to interpret the cosmos. With October advancing and the three Iotals drawing nearer to its conjunction with the sun, this anti-tail formation kept shifting in manners hinting at groundwork for events slated to unfold amid the obscured phase, obscured by solar glare. It seemed the entity was leveraging its last observable days to convey a message via interstellar creativity that people were yet grappling to decipher, all the while showcasing advanced engineering that dwarfed earthly accomplishments as rudimentary relics. Chapter 11. December Deadline. The Final Countdown. The date of November 21, 2025, dawned carrying a fervor that pulsed across the shared awareness of all humankind. Avi's computations indicated this moment as the onset of the interval during which scouting devices, possibly launched by 3 Atlas in its concealed solar transit, could start reaching our planet. Never before, in documented annals, had people circled a day on the calendar that might herald the pinnacle of joy or dread for their kind's survival. Sleepless nights had plagued Dr. Sarah Kim of Caltech for many weeks leading up to this threshold. Her unrest stemmed not from certainty about extraterrestrial encounter, but from the unyielding exactitude in Lowe's projections that barred outright rejection. Orbital dynamics offer no mercy, she noted in the routine sessions now held for authorities fumbling to ready themselves against eventualities no protocol had foreseen. Should 3IA Atlas release scouting devices amid its solar transit, physical principles ensure their entry into our orbital neighborhood over the ensuing 2 weeks. The mental toll of pinning a firm timeline to possible initial interaction had reshaped societal norms and fashions sociologists labored to chronicle. Financial exchanges saw wild swings as traders factored in prospects from innovation booms to total annihilation. Faith-based groups mounted round-the-clock supplication gatherings even as non-religious bodies braced for threats upending core beliefs on our cosmic standing. Hobbyists scanning the heavens across the globe had mounted the grandest vigilant watch ever, enlisting countless spotters to synchronize hunts for incoming artifacts potentially from 3 Atlas. The volunteer-driven initiative spearheaded by Marcus Rodriguez had grown into a worldwide alert mechanism, frequently spotting celestial events ahead of official observatories. We now serve as the vigilant senses of our race through these pivotal 2 weeks defining our lineage. So Rodriguez shared via his streamed addresses, which drew steady audiences exceeding 20 million. All private scopes worldwide form an integrated alert grid poised to signal the advent of extraterrestrial devices. This December threshold had likewise sparked the biggest redeployment of orbital oversight resources since Cold War peaks. Defense sensor arrays, typically tasked with satellite risks and junk, got retooled to pick up tiny intruders from deep space. Spotting them proved daunting, given that 3 Atlas emissaries would probably be tinier and more sophisticated than designs our detectors ever accommodated. Dr. Jennifer Walsh at the Space Telescope Science Institute found herself. She was overseeing a global watch initiative that drew on all principal ground-based and orbital observatories. In a specialized update circulated to observatories across the planet, she declared that they were launching the deepest probe for engineered artifacts in history. Should extraterrestrial scouts be nearing our planet, spotting them would happen prior to their entry into close proximity. Yet the scanning operations faced hurdles stemming from ambiguity over the precise nature of targets. Our own vessels tended to be sizable, somewhat primitive constructs generating clear traces that standard monitoring techniques could pick up easily. Extraterrestrial scouts, assuming their presence, could be compact enough to slip past notice, equipped with advanced features that might nullify earthly monitoring apparatuses. Security outfits around the globe had triggered contingency measures, once dismissed as mere simulations only recently. The prospect of extraterrestrial tech functioning near our world shifted defense strategies into uncharted realms no prior cohort of tacticians had ever confronted. The European Space Agency discreetly adjusted positions of various surveillance craft to broaden oversight of probable entry paths, flagged by Lowe's evaluation as prime routes for arriving scouts. Dr. Angela Martinez, directing the ESA's role in the scanning push, discovered she was now handling assets originally meant for everyday cosmic research, repurposed as humankind's initial barrier against the enigmatic. We're striving to identify items possibly tinier than cars moving at speeds across planetary distances, employing tools that might outstrip our comprehension by ages untold, Martinez detailed in a secure session joined by security representatives from various countries. The gaps in our spotting prowess could prove wholly insufficient against the ordeal at hand. Such tech imbalances sparked troubling inquiries into whether people could mount a proper counter even upon finding incoming scouts. Usual ideas of blocking, discouraging, or shielding lost all sense against tech able to wield core energies and function via laws of nature our knowledge hadn't grasped. Dr. Robert Kim from Stanford was dissecting the tactical fallout of the December deadline through lenses of strategic modeling and warfare doctrine. His review sketched out situations that upended core beliefs on clashes and alliances among societies separated by enormous tech divides. Humanity might be up against minds functioning over epochs spanning millions of years, armed with innovations nearing the utmost bounds physics permits, Kim noted in his promptly secured policy paper. Standard notions of bargaining, discouraging, and shielding could turn utterly pointless amid such extreme gaps in power and outlook. Reactions from faith groups to the December deadline ranged widely and fervently. Certain figures saw the nearing mark as a pivotal unveiling from above, reshaping views on origins and intent. Others fretted over the faith-based fallout from meeting minds that could undermine key tenets on people's singular status and heavenly rule. The Vatican released multiple declarations readying the worldwide Catholic flock for scenarios long-standing belief systems had scarcely pondered. Pope Francis stressed that heavenly compassion embraced every aspect of existence, irrespective of source or tech prowess, even as he noted that dealings with non-terrestrial minds would demand thoughtful doctrinal review. Religious groups engaged in profound contemplation and the emergence of innovative theological paradigms. Various faith-based entities crafted distinct strategies for the prospect of forthcoming extraterrestrial interaction, spanning from eagerness for interstellar enlightenment to profound apprehension regarding threats to long-standing ecclesiastical power. This array of spiritual reactions underscored the core ambiguity surrounding the implications of extraterrestrial engagement for humanity's perception of the holy and transcendent. Academic establishments grappled with equipping learners for an era potentially alien to all prior human history. The impending December threshold compelled teachers to ponder sustaining scholarly curricula and vocational training amid the risk that foundational premises of human innovation could rapidly lose relevance. At UC Berkeley, Dr. Maria Santos devised educational modules aimed at grasping the ramifications of interstellar technological exchange, all while fostering analytical acuity and emotional fortitude. Her initiatives emphasized versatility and mental agility over niche expertise that could swiftly fade into obsolescence. We equip learners for an era beyond our foresight or conception, CentOS remarked at the symposium dedicated to readiness for such encounters. The competencies we impart lean toward mental and rational fortitude instead of mechanical prowess, prioritizing the navigation of radical shifts over expertise liable to quick obsolescence. The December threshold also sparked remarkable collaboration among states long marked by rivalry or outright enmity. The sheer scale of prospective extraterrestrial interaction compelled age-old foes to collaborate in manners that years of negotiation had never realized. China's National Space Administration exchanged monitoring intelligence and sensing tools with Western bodies in fashions unthinkable amid earlier eras of global strife. For the first time since the Cold War's conclusion, Russian orbital resources aligned with NATO oversight networks. The specter of extraterrestrial interaction forged a fleeting communal objective that overrode earthly geopolitical rifts. Yet this global partnership faced hurdles from the enigma of handling actual engagement. Lacking any global structures for overseeing extraterrestrial interaction, the press of the December threshold had blocked the creation of thorough guidelines for alliance against rivalry in those circumstances. Dr. Elena Vasquez, whose pioneering orbital assessment first hinted at synthetic origins for 3 Atlas, now stood amid discussions on engagement guidelines and reaction plans. Her empirical scrutiny had ignited a worldwide upheaval nearing its pivotal peak, burdening her with duties she neither desired nor foresaw. Our research community unlocked a portal we might never reseal, Vasquez conceded in one of her infrequent open forums. The December threshold compels us to face the scenarios our inquiries unveiled, yet as a society, we remain unequipped to handle them. Hobbyists in radio communication noted heightened transmissions across bands once silent save for ambient static, implying that an entity could truly be nearing our planet within the forecasted window. Though faint and unclear for conclusive scrutiny, these emissions aligned with Lowe's rollout projections in a manner defying simple rejection. Expert squads pored over the radio detections, striving to separate cosmic occurrences, man-made disruptions, and conceivable engineered emissions that could signal inbound extraterrestrial apparatus. The immense difficulty arose from the faint character of those transmissions and the complete absence of prior dealings with extraterrestrial messaging systems. Digital networks buzzed with record-breaking engagement as the end-of-year target neared, involving countless individuals across the globe, exchanging speculations, apprehensions, and strategies for whatever could unfold in the interaction period. Establishing a fixed schedule for possibly transformative encounters at the species level had sparked widespread unease, a shared tension that experts in psychological care found challenging to mitigate. Virtual groups focused on monitoring 3i Atlas expanded to encompass tens of millions of members, all tracking updates instantaneously. Spreading knowledge freely about the December cutoff fostered an international dialogue on readiness and reactions to interstellar encounters, bypassing established organizational pathways. Far from merely marking a spot in time, the December milestone evolved into a central hub for humankind's aspirations, dreads, and notions regarding its cosmic standing. Regardless of whether extraterrestrial craft truly appeared in line with Lowe's forecast, the shared build-up to such an encounter had already reshaped societal foundations enduringly, no matter the result. With November yielding to December and the opportunity for interaction expanding, observatories globally kept up their steadfast surveillance as communities everywhere paused in suspense, awaiting insights that could upend existence or affirm isolation amid an expansive, quiet void. Chapter 12. Verdict: Natural Wonder or Alien Arrival. December 5, 2025, signaled the close of AVI's anticipated timeframe for devices possibly launched by 3 Atlas amid its concealed orbit sunward. In those closing moments of the engagement limit, people everywhere shared an extraordinary suspense, bracing for disclosures that could evade arrival altogether or manifest so faintly as to escape quick detection. Dr. Sarah Kim at Caltech spent 2 straight weeks overseeing sensor arrays nonstop, linking up with global facilities, defense surveillance posts, and hobbyist stargazers in the grandest hunt for manufactured items ever mounted. Nearing the limit, sans clear interaction, she wrestled with inquiries stretching well past routine celestial scrutiny. Lack of flashy engagement hardly equates to no engagement at all. Kim noted at the media briefing arranged irrespective of the deadline's disclosures. Our quests for otherworldly tech rely on earthly sensing tools and preconceptions of such tech's operations. Inability to spot clear man-made items could stem from our probing constraints more than from no extraterrestrial nearness. That December marker compelled humankind to face the chance that initial outreach might defy anticipated patterns or schedules. The advanced mind-steering 3 Atlas could function via tenets rendering earthly ideas of approach, outreach, and exchange wholly insufficient for grasping the true events. Hobby radio enthusiasts picked up faint shifts in ambient radio wave structures over the contact period's last stretch, yet those traces proved so dim and unclear as to deny firm proof of crafted sources. Such findings hinted at activity truly unfolding near our planet, though in nuances surpassing capacities for firm pinpointing and dissection. Marcus Rodriguez, whose Arizona Observatory had become a coordination center for citizen science efforts, found he captured the essence of what could be humanity's most underwhelming yet profoundly impactful non-event ever recorded. Perhaps we are encountering an exchange shaped by extraterrestrial notions of dialogue and engagement, far removed from our own. In his concluding video on the deadline evaluation, he noted, "This quietude could hold greater import than any theatrical entrance we had imagined." The understated quality of such possible outreach sparked deep inquiries into our sensory and mental boundaries when facing intellects guided by entirely alien rules. 3 Atlas had long showcased capabilities that defied our grasp of physics. Whatever approaches to connection it might use could prove just as baffling to our scrutiny and dissection. At Stanford, Dr. Robert Kim examined the mental and societal ramifications of the deadline's elapse, irrespective of any genuine encounter taking place. His studies indicated that the shared suspense over extraterrestrial presence had already reshaped global society in enduring fashions, no matter the resolution. In his assessment after the deadline, Kim described how the December marker acted like a looking glass, exposing our preconceptions regarding intellect, innovation, and interstellar exchange. Even if no extraterrestrial craft truly showed up, the build-up toward such an encounter had uncovered core elements of our mental makeup and communal structures that we had seldom confronted before. The deadline's passing ignited fierce discussions among scientists on deciphering the void of clear engagement. Certain experts claimed the missing spectacle validated that 3I Atlas was merely a cosmic body with odd traits eventually accountable by standard inquiry. Still, some insisted the deadline embodied just a single pathway out of numerous options, with interaction possibly unfolding on schedules and in manners beyond our foresight. Dr. Elena Vasquez, who launched the full 3I Atlas probe through her initial path calculations, now grappled with upholding studies that foresaw happenings not manifesting as projected. She remarked in the after-deadline expert evaluation, "Progress in knowledge comes from probing ideas, particularly when findings upend our forecasts. Failing to connect via one particular outline does not undermine the proof that 3B at last embodies crafted intellect." Global space entities kept their upgraded watch systems active past the initial cutoff. Aware that extraterrestrial links might stray from our anticipated patterns, the alert setups for the December slot would run without end, evolving from short-term emergency measures into ongoing sentinels for possible otherworldly actions. Faith groups across the planet viewed the deadline's close through lenses of their varied belief systems. Certain figures regarded the absent spectacle as proof that godly power outranked any off-world mind, whereas others proposed that links could happen via ethereal paths beyond the reach of our earthly setups to detect. The Vatican released a declaration recognizing how sacred designs follow rhythms beyond mortal comprehension, all while stressing that pursuing reality via empirical study stayed a holy duty, come what may in the short term. Various faith bodies crafted their unique takes on occurrences that both satisfied and dashed our hopes in equal measure. Schools and universities began re-evaluating lesson plans crafted to ready educators, observed that learners geared up for aftermath interactions with extraterrestrials, yet these did not unfold as anticipated. This ordeal underscored the vital role of mental agility and versatile reasoning in tackling novel circumstances that upended conventional models of perceiving the world. At UC Berkeley, Dr. Maria Santos chronicled the ways the December deadline ordeal influenced learners' mental states and scholarly strategies. Her findings showed that the prospect of a sudden tech upheaval spurred numerous pupils to prioritize versatility and analytical skills over narrow expertise that could vanish in a flash. The 3E Atlas crisis has shown that the prime schooling for an unpredictable tomorrow centers on mental pliability instead of fixed expertise, as Santos noted in her examination after the cutoff. Those pupils trained to reason flexibly amid novel trials will stand readier for any twists destiny unfolds. In commerce and finance realms, the deadline's crossing marked an era of extreme doubt, succeeded by tentative ease as fiscal mechanisms persisted under known rules. Yet the turbulence and emotional toll of the turmoil exposed frailties in worldwide monetary frameworks unproven against prospects of tech upheaval. Bourses saw frantic swings while traders gauged possibilities from tech paradise to fiscal ruin, eventually stabilizing amid lingering doubts over 3I Atlas's real essence and effects. This episode spotlighted the frailty of earthly fiscal setups in handling swift tech shifts, possibly stemming from extraterrestrial encounters. Hobby stargazers kept up their intensified surveillance past the formal cutoff, aware that their volunteer inquiry webs had grown into a key part of humankind's watch over stellar events. The broadening access to 3I Atlas inquiry had forged enduring skills, independent of short-term encounter results. This hobbyist group started crafting fresh approaches to spot faint signs that could signal extraterrestrial actions lurking under standard sensing limits. Such initiatives acknowledge that superior extraterrestrial tech could evade clear spotting, yet pursue scouting or similar tasks near our planet. Spy outfits across the globe treated the December deadline as a trial run for handling novel tech dangers and data conflict setups. The ordeal laid bare assets and flaws in apparatuses built for ground level rather than stellar safeguard issues. The 3I Atlas crisis compelled spy groups to forge novel schemas for dissecting perils driven by logic's outside human tech grasp. Such dissection tools will endure useful, no matter if the prompt encounter forecasts held true. Wellness experts in the mind tracked major emotional effects from the deadline saga, from sharp worry in the anticipation phase to assorted releases, letdowns, or ongoing ambiguity once the cutoff elapsed sans clear encounters. This saga yielded fresh vistas on how mortal minds react to vast-scale, being doubts from the stars. Aid webs set up to ease encounter dread morphed into gatherings bent on grappling with the wider meanings of dwelling in a cosmos, brimming with intellect vastly outpacing ours. The mental adjustment to the vast unknowns of space had evolved into a continuous journey, no longer a sharp emergency demanding quick fixes. The slipping away of that anticipated timeline had likewise sparked fresh scrutiny of 3 Atlas in its own right, with projections placing its return from solar obscurity in the opening days of December, ready once more for scrutiny through ground telescopes on Earth. This comeback offered the initial chance post-October to evaluate any alterations it might have sustained in seclusion or if it had released additional elements. Initial sightings of 3I at last as it started peeking out from behind the sun's glare indicated real transformations had occurred in that concealed phase. Fresh architectural elements stood out, while signals picked up by radio arrays displayed greater intricacy and pattern than those noted before the alignment. Those alterations to 3 at last in its screen transit offered proof that the entity had been busily at work out of Earth's sight. If such work involved launching scouts, enhancing systems, or pursuing different tasks stayed a mystery. Yet the shifts established that 3I Atlas embodied dynamic machinery, not inert cosmic debris. Dr. Jennifer Walsh from the Space Telescope Science Institute ended up leading fresh monitoring efforts aimed at capturing any disclosures 3 Atlas could share regarding its doings amid the sun's shadow. We're on the verge of glimpsing exactly what this thing managed in 6 weeks of total seclusion from our view, she noted in the session outlining the watch plans. What alterations come into focus will unlock vital clues about its powers and aims. Even after prolonged deep dives and the fading of foretold interaction points, the judgment on 3-Thud Atlas hung in profound uncertainty. This presence unmistakably signaled a break from all prior human encounters, revealing abilities that upended core beliefs in tech, intellect, and the universe's rules. If it signaled the dawn of extraterrestrial outreach or merely events beyond current human grasp, lingered as a lingering puzzle, one destined to mold society's path irrespective of swift resolutions.